generally advise it. I would just follow it.
The first day back, Monday.
First time that's
Yeah. They cancel everything. Nobody knows how to get around that. She didn't have her job It's gonna be cool. I'm sure you guys don't know. I thought somebody had quite okay, and then it started to just be like a snow show. She was the train. And we Oh, we went to
I just got everything.
Just turn off. Down will advance your from the bottom of the set. Wait, down advance.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the West Goshen Township Board of Supervisors meeting for January the 21st. If you would please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Please be aware the meeting is being live streamed on the Township YouTube channel, and the meeting may also be audio or video recorded by people present in the room. Before we go to public comment, I think, Chris, you have a couple of announcements you'd like to make.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I have two brief announcements I would like to make. The first is, Mark, I want to commend your crew on the outstanding job that they did with the snowstorm on Sunday night. It was, Mark kept in communication with me. It was an all hands on deck event. He had representatives from all divisions in Public Works, and they did an outstanding job, and we got compliments from residents commending the work that they did. So I just wanted to make sure that while he was here that he was acknowledged for the work that they did. So thank you, Mark.
Well
Thanks
done,
to
Mark.
everybody.
And the whole team.
And I also want to congratulate our township engineer, Brian Kolakowski. Last Thursday, Brian passed his drone examination and is now licensed for his drone.
Oh boy.
Congratulations, Brian.
Does that mean we're going to be seeing drones all around the neighborhood then?
Probably a week till I get the actual license from the FAA and then start flying at that point.
Right.
But congratulations.
Yeah.
John, they're going to be gas powered.
All right, so opportunity for public comment, agenda item number 3. Is there anyone here who has a public comment this evening they'd like to make? Charlie?
Happy New Year, everyone. Charlie Golden, West Goshen. I too want to say thank you very much. It was a great cleanup job with the snowstorm. Maybe the first in 30 years they didn't plow my driveway closed, so they really took their time this year. Very much care. I really appreciate it. I also want to congratulate President Trump for the inauguration yesterday. It's going to be exciting. This year is declared as the year of common sense. So I really look forward to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie. Is there anyone else who has a comment today? Very good. We'll move on to agenda item number 4, which is possible approval of a proposal for the lining on Cotswold Lane. This is a stormwater system rehabilitation. Chris, would you like to introduce the topic, please?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. So, Mark, I'll kick this off and then you can fill in anything I may miss. So before the board this evening is a proposal from National Gunite to complete lining of corrugated metal pipe on Cotswold Lane. Proposal amount is $85,424. Mark Bertolami, our street superintendent, contacted National Gunite regarding a proposal for this work due to the pipe in this location showing signs of failure. We did have a small sinkhole open up behind the C-top inlet in this location. The proposal would be to complete shotcrete lining of a 42-inch diameter pipe for approximately 95 linear feet. I'll note that National Gunite completed a similar project in 2023 on Loxley Drive after a sinkhole formed, which was approximately 1 block from the proposed location. And this is a development that is one of 2 neighborhoods that Mr. Bertolami has identified as needing CMP repair work completed.
Thank you, Chris. Does the board have questions on the information, the proposed contract, or for Mark?
Yeah, when would this begin?
They told me probably 2 weeks after it was approved.
Thank you.
Even in this weather?
Well, probably not in this weather, but probably more around the 32 range. But like this type of weather this week, I think it would be a no-go.
Mark, the work this was the same company that did work over on, you say, Loxley Drive. I presume that job went well?
It did, it went very well.
Okay.
And I believe, Mark, correct me if I'm wrong, they did just complete the project on Longview as well, right?
They did Longview, and they also did Matlack.
Yeah, didn't we tell us fourth one?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's correct.
Yeah.
So we're familiar with the company, we're familiar with the product, and so far so good with previous projects with them.
Definitely.
Okay.
Do you know what the cost per square foot or per foot for the prior work that they did? The way I calculated, this is about $899 per foot. Is that about the same as what they had prior?
No, I didn't do the math. I have the numbers here. Loxley was 285 feet long, 48-inch diameter, $180,000. Matlack was 70 feet long, 36 by 58, $60,000.
Yeah, I guess you really can't compare apples to apples here because the different diameter sizes we're talking about.
Plus any job, you've got the mobilization cost, so even if you're doing more feet, you've still got that upfront project
Correct.
administration, mobilization cost.
They said they have to do a lot of heavy cleaning on this one because it's filled with debris. Might add a little bit, he said.
Mark, what was the length on Loxley again?
Loxley was 285 feet.
285.
Matlack was 70 and Longview was 70.
Now this neighborhood, Canterbury, right, this is another problem neighborhood in general with respect to CMP.
Yeah.
Is it number 2 behind Fresh Meadows? Fresh Meadows is where we've been doing the work so far.
Yeah, I would say the in-house crew has been doing work in Canterbury too, so yeah, I would say it's right up there.
Okay. Any other questions from the board?
I'll make the motion to approve.
I'll second that motion.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Tina. So I had a motion to approve this proposal from National Gunite. Is there any public comments or questions on it?
Question.
Sal?
Has this manufacturer or contractor shown long-term stability with Gunite over corrugated? I know you said you did a similar project like a year or 2 ago, but have they shown long-term viability of Gunite over corrugated, different thermal expansions, things like that?
I mean, it's known in the technology to add 50 to 75 years to the life of the CMP, but as far as this company, I'm not sure if I'm answering the question correctly.
But then again, they showed projects that said, hey, we've got at least 20 years by donating a piece of corrugated, this vintage and this, I'm sure they prepare it, clean it, do whatever they got to do to make sure things stick. But roads, when you get X number of years, or there's a warranty coming, but there's some type of stability of the gunite over the corrugated.
Not enough for warranty. wire mesh
Yep.
all through the pipe. And then we shot free, almost like a swing.
Yeah, oh, well, that's exactly what it is. Makes a lot of sense as long as it stays on that, it stays on there.
Yeah.
I think about vibrations, thermal expansion, and contraction, and it kind of walks its way up, kind of a Denrite version of Spall. So that's, has anybody seen any of these projects more than a couple of years old?
Brian, I don't know if you have any experience with it.
I haven't seen any better at the age that Sal's asking about. They do quote in their proposal that they expect a 50 to 75-year service life of what they're putting in.
Well, that won't be a warranty.
Yeah, I was going to
They
say,
provide-
is it
there's a-
20-year warranty, 10-year warranty?
There's a 1-year
There's a
warranty.
I'll give you 1 year warranty. Okay, just, it'd be nice to know if they can at least show projects that maybe, or could they show projects that maybe that have been around 5, 10, 15, 20 years?
That's a good question. I think we should find out what kind of experience. We don't have the experience, so let's find out someone who does have the experience on long-term use of this product. It's been around for a long time now.
This project too is borderline emergency too.
Yeah.
So, we should move on with my opinion, and the next time.
Move on and to ask the question.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we can ask the question. We're not trying to hold it up. We're just trying to get a better feel for the performance of this material over years. Okay. Any other questions? Okay, then we'll take a vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Is there any opposition? Hearing none, the motion passes 5-0. Next on the agenda is a presentation from the Transportation Management Association regarding a proposed project. And with us this evening is John Meisel, who will, I believe, have a presentation for us.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you for having me. I won't take too much of your time. Just want to go over a study that we recently finished at the Transportation Management Association of Chester County. We got a grant from the Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission to look at the Chester County stretch of Route 3 and look at the bus stops and the condition of the pedestrian environment and the 104 bus route there. And it's interesting, the genesis of this was really twofold. It was to look at the 104 ridership and how can we increase that, but also what are the conditions on the ground. And, oh, this is the whole report, this isn't the PowerPoint here.
Give me a second. I put the wrong one up.
And so, interestingly, when we got on the ground and saw the conditions out there along Route 3, we went back to DVRPC and said, can we tailor the scope of the project? Because we don't want to increase ridership on the 104 and put people in harm's way, but we want to look at ways to make it a better place where people can wait for the bus, catch the bus, cross Route 3 at selected intersections, because they're already doing it now. And so they approved that change, and we did a little bit more of an in-depth look at the conditions, and I'm going to skip ahead to some of the pictures. I don't have to tell you what it's like out there, but it's a very harsh environment. And people are already trying to wait and catch the bus and cross the street, and it's not only is it dangerous because of the speeds of the vehicle, but also just because of inconsistent treatments of the intersection. There are places where there are crosswalk sections that are missing, where the crossing signals don't work, and also the conditions of the bus stops where there are very few bus stops that have a shelter or a safe place to stand, and it's also, for the riders, it's not a very dignified situation, and nor is it safe. So what we looked at in this study is how can we begin to tackle this? I mean, this is a corridor that for decades has been overlooked for pedestrian amenities. How can we begin this process? So we got out there, we looked at existing conditions, and we came to the conclusion that it would be best if we took 3 priority intersections as demonstration projects. There's one in West Goshen, which is the intersection at Golf Club Apartments and West Goshen Town Center. There's one in East Goshen at the Rose Tree Apartments and Mary Fran Drive, where the Metropolitan Complex, I think it's called Metropolitan East, is located. And then there's one priority project that we pointed out in West Town, which is at the Wawa and at the West Town Marketplace. So first, I think it's a good way to break it down. Instead of trying to tackle all the intersections, to pick out 3 that are digestible and that make sense. And then the townships could either work together to obtain grants or work separately to obtain grants. And they're out there, they're available. There are PennDOT state multimodal grants, there are Chester County grants, and usually the way it works with these grants is you all could apply with TMAC working with you, and there's usually a match with the grants. So the township never has to take on the whole cost of making improvements, but it would go a long way to tackle these intersections either together or individually. And then once those intersections are improved, they could spread throughout the corridor. But this is a way to chip away at it and sort of get at some of these dangerous conditions. Now, this is a good example of, this is at Golf Club Apartments, where there actually is bus stops and shelters, but there isn't a connection between Route 3 and Golf Club Apartments. They have an internal sidewalk network, but there's no connection out to the street. And so it's natural to sort of extend that sidewalk network to the bus stop at that priority intersection and improve the bus stops and the timing of the signals and the pedestrian crosswalks and all of that. And this is done all the time. It's not, it's nothing new. It just has to be done carefully. And we think it's a good way for West Goshen to go and for the other townships in the corridor to go, to start chipping away and making improvements. Because it's interesting, when we were on the ground, we actually spoke to quite a few people waiting at bus stops and people who live in the apartments along the Route 3, and they want to use the corridor. They're already using the corridor, but how can we make it safer for them? And I'm going to be completely honest with you and say that SEPTA doesn't really make improvements to their bus stops. SEPTA looks at it as the local municipality's responsibility to improve the bus stops, or the county's responsibility to take initiative to improve the bus stops. PennDOT is in charge of the timing of the intersections and the signals at the intersection. So these bus stops and intersections can fall between the cracks, which is what they've done. So I think what we've done with this study is not only pointed out a way to tackle it, but raised awareness. And right now, we finished this study in June. And right now, there is an impetus for us to, we hope, keep moving forward. We can work with you all. The county is on board. We worked with them, and they were an advisory group status to this report. They would like to get involved with some of the bus stop improvements. So there is, right now, there's some momentum. And so the next step would be for us to sit down and talk about whether West Goshen could take on this intersection, and we could work with them and apply for the grant. I can even apply to get money for my time to work on this project. And so I'm here to, I hope, point out what we've been doing, but also, remind you that there's now a little momentum to do this for the residents. And one number I wanted to point out, in the entire 6-mile stretch of this corridor in Chester County on Route 3, from Five Points Road to Providence Road, there are over 4,500 townhome, apartment, condominium units, which is a pretty dense multifamily environment, which is one of the reasons we took this on in the first place. But when you look at it, it's amazing how many people live, work, travel along the corridor or just off the corridor. And it was eye-opening for us to find out just how many multifamily units there are in this corridor, both in West Goshen and in East Goshen. Fewer in Willistown, but still quite a few in Westtown, and Edgemont has a few, but it's pretty dense. These are in your report, your package, just other photographs of some of the pedestrian environment, some of the missed connections that we need to fix. This is actually the Ventry, which is in Edgemont, which it's a new condominium development, and they did build this sidewalk connection to a bus stop going eastbound, but there's nothing on the westbound side. And anybody who right now who would try and cross mid-block there would take their lives in their hands. So these are the types of conditions we're talking about, where even if there's one bus stop that's been improved on one side, usually doesn't carry through to both sides, nor is it something that's been done with any sort of cohesion or forethought. So we're really hoping that things can change.
John, a couple of questions from me to kick it off. Is that
Yeah.
okay? So have you talked yet with either East Goshen or Westtown municipal boards?
So we've talked with everybody through the course. One of the first things we did was reach out to municipal officials in all 5 municipalities, kicked it off, and we talked to them throughout the project. There's been a change in management in East Goshen, if I'm correct. Westtown. So we lost that thread, but we are in touch with them, and there's pretty good support. And I think what we'd like to do as a next step is maybe have a joint meeting, just informative, to sit down with the municipalities and talk about where there might be some areas of interest and go over the findings in detail. But yeah, we have been in touch with all of them. And obviously some of them, like Edgemont, there's fewer units. Willistown, it's more townhomes than it is apartments or condos, but they're still aware of what we're doing. But West Goshen is definitely one of the linchpins.
Do you know if the priority intersection in West Goshen, the one at Golf Club Apartments and the West Goshen Town Center, it needs improvements on both sides of the street, correct?
Yeah, I mean, both sides have bus shelters and what we call pad, for a concrete pad for it to sit on, but that's about it. And there are missing legs to the crosswalks, and I think the timing's off on the cross signals. And also where the vehicles stop at the intersection needs to be pushed back to allow more room for the crosswalks there. It's sort of looking at the whole intersection, and none of these improvements by themselves is large, but obviously together they're going to run into the tens of thousands of dollars, but that's where the grants come in, so money's out there.
Okay.
John, if I could ask you, I see in your presentation that we had, you met with the township managers, you also met with a lot of the property owners and managers of the complexes along that corridor that you mentioned. Have you also reached out to the state reps, or state house rep, Representative Pioli, and also our state senator, Senator Committee?
So we did not as part of the study, but it is something we can do. The other players that I think were mentioned in the report are PennDOT, who we have a close working relationship with and are aware of, and got a copy of this report, and obviously SEPTA themselves and the county. So we have not reached out on that state representative level, but that would be an obvious next step as well.
For the next step in the process.
Yeah.
Now, when you reached out to the property owners, the managers of these apartment complexes along the corridor, what was their response to your inquiries?
So the first thing we asked them is, how do you communicate with your residents? And some of them have internal websites or have bulletin boards or newsletters or ways of communicating with their residents. But it was surprising how little the topic of transportation came up, and very few managers know sort of all the ins and outs of where their tenants live and or where they work and where they're going, whether they take the bus. So we developed a survey that they could use to find out more about their residents. And I think we raised some awareness, but to be honest, I would have liked to have had more participation from the property managers. It was hard to get them to pay attention to it.
I was going to ask you about the survey. Has the survey been distributed?
Yep, and we got some responses, again, not as many as we would have liked, but it's something that can be ongoing. I think it's a good survey. Part of this is obviously raising awareness, and the next step would be to go back to some of those managers and try to get them to use the survey and raise the awareness so we can gather more information and get the word out. Because, as we said, we don't really, the 104 bus is highly underutilized, and obviously SEPTA, and eventually we would like it to have higher ridership, but we don't want to put anybody in harm's way at the same time, which is why we really want to try to improve some of these bus stops and some of these intersections. SEPTA has an effort underway right now to revamp a lot of their suburban bus stops. And that may involve paring some of them away, which is fine if they're greatly underutilized, but at the same time, our message to SEPTA is, if you're going to take certain stops away, then certain stops need to become, they need to have better improvements and more focus on them, so that you can concentrate riders in a safe way and move them. And I think they understand that, but again, as I said, they don't really, surprisingly, take the initiative on it.
Approximately how many people are utilizing this the 104 system?
So a couple, the figures I have are closer to the beginning of the study than the end, but it's a couple of hundred a month, and obviously the greater boardings and, as they say, alightings in the bus business, which is people getting off, are at the major intersections. They're where you would think they would be. They're focused on the larger intersections in the corridor. And the correlation we were trying to make is that those are folks who live at the multifamily units in the corridor, but without greater participation, it's hard for us to make that connection other than anecdotally, which we were able to do by talking to folks, but we'd like to get, as a next step, get more correlation between the folks that ride and the folks that live in the corridor.
John, I have a question. Who owns the bus stop structure and is required to maintain that structure and around that structure?
Yeah.
Grass or whatever. So
Right. It's a good
question.
It's a good question, and it's not consistent.
Okay.
As far as, and this is why it's so hard to get municipalities and homeowners associations and the rest involved in the bus stop business, because it has to be owned, or somebody has to take responsibility for maintaining it, emptying the trash, shoveling when it snows. keeping it clean. And it can be undertaken by, as I said, it can be undertaken by an HOA of a nearby residential unit. It could be undertaken by the local municipality.
Except in PennDOT won't.
PennDOT won't do it.
I know that Chris Daly in the audience, his firm dealt with one on Route 30 in Lincoln Highway for New Ingerman, and a really nice affordable housing project that was a big issue. Like, these people are gonna ride the bus, where are they gonna stand, and who's gonna, and so we were able to negotiate and got the property owner to agree to, you know, I think even install it or improve it and agree to maintain it. But when this project for Ally came in, that was one of the conversations we had to have, is we wanted to see a better bus stop and a safer location and someone to maintain it, and I can't remember where we left it, but I know PennDOT was like, we're not touching it.
Right, there was an agreement.
Yeah.
I don't remember.
I think the property owner agreed in that case too, but it's negotiation.
So we need to resolve that first before we even touch it, right? Figure out who owns it, who's going to take ownership.
Right, and
of it.
usually it's done through a memorandum of understanding. It's a short document that's written up, that's just an agreement on who's gonna undertake, managing it. As far as the construction, the county is showing interest in initiating, taking some of the bus stops in the corridor and initiating the construction, which is great. And now we have the county sort of behind us on this effort. It's going to take some coordination.
Who would the MOI be with?
It's gonna have to be the property owner.
The property
It's
owner?
gonna have to be the property owner, yeah.
What,
Like the people that own golf club apartments, and that's where the communication back to the residents to say, like, here's an amenity that we're helping provide for you because this bus goes along our route and come stay in our apartments. But that's where I think you're gonna have it, because PennDOT's not gonna do it, SEPA's not gonna do it, unless the municipality's gonna do it. I think you have to get the property owners.
So
Who maintains it now?
Nobody.
okay, so the shopping center across the street, wouldn't that be a right of way?
It used to be that they sold advertising. So
Right.
some of the advertising, like maybe Clear Channel
Right,
maintained
Clear
it because they wanted to make sure that
You see it?
their advertisement was done in a nice way, but that, I think, is also gone by the wayside.
And I believe our trash and recycling collection contract also includes collecting from certain bus shelters in the township.
Doesn't it include that one?
I believe so, yes, because
Does it?
I've gotten complaints about that.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody's shoveling them now.
Yeah.
The few bus shelters that are out there.
But if we get,
For a while, we're gonna hit Clear Channel Place.
okay. I think Clear Channel does own a few of the ones in the township.
Okay, and then is there, do we have any safety statistics on pedestrians in any of those three areas right now? I'm just curious, because that would certainly help sell what you want to sell as far as the bus stops.
There are a few that we went through, and we can help provide those
I think
as
that would
part
be
of
a big-
this effort.
big part
They
of
do,
it.
it's important,
Yeah,
it's,
The one, I was on Team Act when this was being done, and I know the one that they always talked about,
Right.
it's not in West Goshen, but the West Town Shopping Center, if you were disabled, there's absolutely no way for you to be able to use that bus stop, because the grade of where the bus stop is versus where the bus actually stops, and you couldn't get to it. I mean, it's really sad.
so, and the good news in West Town is that there's some, when the development process occurs, there's room for improvement, and there's going to be some improvements at the pad sites there at the marketplace at West Town. So they've been in contact with the developer and with us, and we've said to them, look, we've got a couple of projects. As Kristen said, the connections between the bus stop, which sort of sits upgrade from the marketplace at West Town, and trying to make that connection safely, so the disabled person, and there'd be switchbacks and ramps at appropriate grade so that those people can get back and forth. Whereas right now, it's just so dangerous if you were to get off the bus at the top of the West Town Marketplace and try to make your way down. There's a steep grade down to the Burger King, and it's treacherous. And so that's why that's a priority intersection for West Town Township.
and then my last question is, as far as, you mentioned that a survey, who were you trying to get the survey from? Was it the people that own multi-dwellings, or are you trying to get the survey from the pedestrians or the people that ride, the ridership people?
So of the ridership from the residents themselves, which is a tall ask. It's hard to get people to participate, you know, a resident to participate in something, in a survey, but it's something we'd like to, you know, if we can break through to several of them, and if we can make better connections with, let's say, your property owners, managers in West Goshen, maybe we can do that and find out more about the usage.
Yeah, the reason why I say that is because we had very good success with what we did when we were trying to get a survey for our parks. We were doing a total park redo, and we wanted the public to comment on what they want so that we can give it to them. And what we did was we had a couple of functions that we had the QR code like on everywhere people were at a function we had.
Yeah.
And because people were sitting there waiting, they filled it out, and we got 600 surveys within 2 days. So my point is, if you make the QR code available at the bus stops, where the people are just sitting there waiting, and they see something they can do, that's how we got a lot of ours. So that might be a suggestion you might want to use. Get a QR code, stick it right on one of the bus stop walls or something.
Right. Or, and if we can get that QR code out to the managers themselves to include in whatever they use to regularly communicate with their residents, even better, might even have better success. So
Yeah.
that, I think this is obviously this is a first step, and that there are many avenues, but greater communication, coordination between property managers and owners, residents, the township, TMAC, Chester County, all the various players, the better chance we're going to have at being successful. And so we see this as a first step, and you know, a logical series of steps to keep the momentum going. And I think it's a project whose time has come.
Thank you, John. So is there anyone in attendance who has some questions for John on this presentation?
Just a few. So, do you work for the TMAC?
I do.
Okay. So, what is it a nonprofit or?
It is. It's a nonprofit, and we do both planning work itself, like this. I'm an urban and environmental and transportation planner, but we also do advocacy work for getting people on public transportation and making safer last mile connections and transportation routes. So yes.
So when the likes of SEPTA says they put in a bus route, how is a bus route established, and how is the bus stop established?
You know, it's
That's a
interesting.
very complicated process.
It's a wonder it ever happened, but they regularly review their, and the way they separate it is their urban and SEPTA's urban and suburban routes.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of the separation they make. They regularly review them, and they review the ridership, but they don't make regular improvements. So somewhere along the line, SEPTA established these bus stops, put a sign up, and then just sort of forgot about it, other than monitoring riderships.
So when SEPTA establishes a line, do they have to work with a township, a county, the state? I mean, they say, okay, we're gonna have buses stopping along state roads or county roads or municipal, you know, whatever roads. Who do they get a blessing or approval from to say we're allowed to stop our big motorized thing there?
Well, they'd have to get approval from PennDOT, and they would have to, you know, they have to let the local municipality know.
Right.
Both. But how those stops got established way back when is always seems to be quite a mystery.
Okay.
And everyone assumes that SEPTA's would be more involved in, you know, bus stops going forward and making sure that the riders have safe places to wait and board. That's not the case. So that's where we're hoping to fill the gap.
I see your frustration there. So, okay, so I believe buses need to be utilized more for people, especially who don't have other means of transportation. Great concept. So it seems like, I assume, you know, I can see why you're appealing to the township level, but it seems like at a minimum, this is a county initiative to, you know, make from here to here, whatever that means, a more usable corridor for the citizens and taxpayers and whatever, the workers within the area there. So you're telling me at a county level or at a state level, nothing is established to help people get from point A to point B when it has to do with public transportation?
So the county plays a role in letting people know what options they have and how to get from point A to point B. They have a whole website about how you get anywhere in Chester County from point A to point B. But it's not they don't have complete authority over what happens in the roadway, because it's, it's in PennDOT's right of way, it's in local municipalities, and it involves a quasi-private body like SEPTA who's running the buses. So it's a perfect place for TMAC to try and step in and play quarterback.
Well, I mean, again, you're facilitating between the townships, and I would think that the county's not facilitating between the townships on a given route to say,
They
hey,
do.
let's all kind of own or not own or get sidewalks to or from. They don't
Well,
do
and
that.
that's why they're now, and as one of the outcomes of this study already, the county has initiated an effort to get involved in the bus stop business, at least in select locations in the quarter. So that's a good first step.
Right. So what are you looking for from, okay, so as a taxpayer here, though, my last question is that, what are you looking for from the township? I mean, other than cooperation and motivation and rah-rah and maybe helping get a grant, you're looking for, are you ultimately seeking any financial assistance from township? Or is it
So
just support?
the financial commitment might be a 20% match on a grant, which, is kind of familiar to municipalities in Chester County and done all the time, and is there might be a financial commitment, but it's certainly, the grants are out there, and I don't ever see it being a full financial commitment on the part of any municipality. So I think it's to come to you with the conclusions and the priority intersections, and then we go from there.
Okay, so then I'm thinking, as a resident, well, future resident, presently a taxpayer and a business owner, love the concept, and I believe in, absolutely believe in public transportation, but it seems like it's either a state, a county, or a SEPTA financial obligation, and our support in facilitating with whatever permits and, things like that. So other than the financial obligation, I wonder if you support the concept and your motivation for TMAC for doing this. So
Okay,
that's my
we'll maybe agree a next step here, Sal, hopefully you can weigh in on that. But Doug, you had a question as well?
Yes.
Right, so are you asking the township to match these grants and pay for structures and amenities that are going to either be on private property or on PennDOT right away?
I think I'm trying to, I'm not asking for any commitment. I'm asking for the county, or I'm asking for the township to consider getting involved and perhaps applying for a grant to make some of these improvements.
But how would that work if it's on private property? And
All those
and then-
details would have to be worked out on a case-by-case, depending on where the bus stop is, if there's an existing agreement in place, if you have a property owner that wants to be a party to it. So I don't think he can answer that, because he doesn't know all the facts about who owns what where, and if an improvement was made, where would be the best, safest location for the bus stop, the sidewalk, et cetera. So I don't think he can answer that. I think he's just saying, the first step is, let's get someone to design this, or help get Grant to design it. And then all those details that we talked about, ownership, maintenance, all that would have to be sorted through.
Well, and also know that PennDOT, who's the biggest player in all of this, because they own the right of way and they maintain the intersection, the signals at the intersection.
No, we maintain the signals. The township owns the signals. Yeah, township owns all the signals.
You own all the signals,
Yes.
but they're responsible for the.
They issue the permit for it.
Right, and they're responsible for the timing of all the signals and the coordination. They're aware of this study. It's something that's been done in other areas of Chester County where municipalities have participated in work on a state road, improvements on a state road.
So maybe I can help answer this a little bit. So we've applied for that PennDOT multimodal transportation grant for the culvert under Montgomery Avenue. That was an application we made in '24. Hopefully we'll hear the result, and hopefully it'll be successful in the middle of this year. And that was, it's a PennDOT road, but we're looking for, I believe on that one, Chris, it ended up being 100% funded by that grant program. We would not have a match, is our belief, right?
That's the DCD program. The
Okay, I'm sorry, not the
program
PennDOT,
is
yes,
the
I
same.
got it muddled up. We've applied for 2 grants for the same project, so we believe it'll be completely funded one way or another. So to me, I mean, a reasonable next step here would be to say, ask staff to get a meeting together with East Goshen staff, West Town staff, and a couple of board members, and talk about whether they're interested in a group effort to apply for one of these grants that's 80, 100% funded by the state. Maybe the county grant would be another county grant we could apply for any difference or something like that. And do it as a combined effort, as one grant application, share the cost of making the grant application, and see if we get the funding.
And I think, and John, you know a lot more about this than I do. I think if you've got like 3 targeted intersections, one in each municipality, with each of these 3, the likelihood of success increases, because then there's a bigger bang for your buck, so to speak.
Yes, and that's why I set up the recommendation in the report this way. Not only naturally did it lend itself to having one in East Goshen, one in West Goshen, and one in West Town, but we knew that moving forward, if that was our recommendation, we'd have a better chance of achieving, successfully achieving the grant funding, because it would show multi-municipal coordination, which they like to see. If all 3 were in West Goshen, it would be possible this way. Either the townships can do it separately or they can do it together. So we divide it up that way on purpose too, which is good.
Okay, any other questions? So I'm looking at the board here, and Chris, we're talking about the next step for you to try to organize a intermunicipal meeting with your counterparts and maybe some volunteer board members, and see if we can get a joint agreement to prepare an application for grant programs this year and get I think the middle of the year they're due by.
The DCD
July.
program, I believe, is July, and the PennDOT program is usually October.
Yeah,
So we
so,
can set something up with Derek and Mila.
yeah.
Yeah, did you know, did you check the township, the metropolitan, is that half of it is in East Goshen and half of it is in West Goshen?
Yeah, there's 2 parts to the metropolitan,
Yeah.
correct. Yep.
Okay, and the one that we're talking about with bus stop is in the township,
East.
east, okay.
I think that's the one they call the Metropolitan 2, and it's right across from Rose Hill Apartments.
Right.
And that one, there are bus stops on the east and west sides, but it's a dangerous situation because to where they're located now, people would have to cross mid-block, and in the report we propose moving them up to an intersection where we make improvements, hope to get people back and forth between the bus stops safely at a signalized intersection rather than trying, because that mid-block situation is the most dangerous of all, and it's also very hard on a high-speed roadway like Route 3 to make a mid-block improvement. I mean, that you've got to move heaven on earth
So
to
if
do
you
that.
moved it, would it be in East Goshen or West Goshen?
East.
Okay.
That one would be east.
Okay.
Yes.
And John, I know early on in this, I provided you with the contact information for the property managers for the survey, and I don't know how many of our residents, use public transportation or sign up for our e-newsletter, but if it would be helpful, you can send me the link and I can put it in our next e-newsletter. If you can send it to me tomorrow, I can get it in the January one, that'll help you get some more information.
Well, thank you very much, John. It was great, very informative, and we have a next step to hopefully, as you say, keep some momentum going.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Thanks, John.
Okay, next on the agenda is agenda item number 6, which is an upcoming zoning hearing board application. And Shelby, could you talk us through this one?
Yes, before the board this evening is zoning hearing board application number 13-2024 for 1103, 1105 Saunders Court. This is the location of Roman Mosaic and Tile Company. The property is located within the I-2 Light Industrial Zoning District. The applicant is seeking relief from section 8438B12 of the Township Zoning Ordinance. This provision requires that a 100-foot setback be maintained between an industrial use when it abuts a residential use or district. In this instance, the proposed project is adjacent to the Harrison Hill apartment complex property. As such, the applicant is seeking to reduce the setback area to 38 feet from the required 100 feet. The Planning Commission did review this application at their meeting on January 14th and voted to recommend that the township remain neutral. The applicant's attorney and engineer are here to answer any questions the board may have.
I have this aerial plan that I can pass down, because I thought it was hard to understand where this property was in relationship to the Harrison Hill, but you can see the Harrison Hill property is a big long triangle. I think that's what the issue comes into play, so I thought that was helpful to pass that down. Because it seems like it's pretty far from the actual building, but their property line goes down and abuts this property.
Correct. Our proposed building is going to be at least 800 feet away from the apartment building.
So,
Should we go up here?
discuss this.
Could you just introduce yourself, please? I'm sorry, I didn't write it down.
Sure. I'm Chris Daly. I'm with Howe Engineering.
Welcome.
So this is Roman mosaic and tile right here. They're currently using this property. They want to construct a 10,000 square foot building on this property here, which they also own. The building is going to be roughly in this vicinity. This is the Harrison Hill property here, and this is the strip of land that we are required to have a 100-foot buffer away from. The Harrison Hill apartment building is all the way up there. There's only, I believe there's a walking trail that kind of runs right through here. So we're seeking relief to reduce that buffer from 100 feet down to, I believe, around 30 feet.
Could you show one more time where the 100-foot requirement is and where you're proposing to reduce it to 38 feet?
Yeah, so the 100-foot buffer would probably come out to around right here,
Okay.
and then we would be reducing it down
Okay.
to...
So is that, all right, thank you.
Yeah.
Now, is it possible for Harrison Hill Apartments to do any construction in this area here, in the lower part of this triangle?
I don't believe so. I mean, you have Route 202 right here, so you're going to have the, front yard setback that's going to apply. You're also going to have, probably a 30-foot setback coming off of our property line. It's kind of a very small building.
So it's really not developable.
Exactly. And there's also, I was looking at an aerial, there's also some electrical utility overhead lines running right through here.
So your hardship is, given the geographical dimensions of their property and yours, you can't utilize your property unless you get this variance.
Yeah, mainly with our property. I mean, we also have the Route 322 bypass right here, so we have a 50-foot setback coming off of that, and then we have a 30-foot setback coming off of this side yard, and then we have a 100-foot buffer there. The building envelope is pretty much useless.
We had a similar situation come up about a developer wanted to build at 901 South Walmart. Problem there was that they were adjacent to residential properties, which were existing, whereas this is not the case.
That's the other hardship we have also. This subdivision was done, I think, before the overlay district was applied to here, because this property is actually in the industrial district. The issue we have is that it's a residential use.
Just one last thing here. In the zoning ordinance, which you're looking to get variance from, 84 and 38, they have a section there. In the event that you can't meet the screening requirements or the 100-foot buffer, you have to meet the requirements of zoning section 84-55A. Are you familiar with that?
Not off the top of my head.
Well, this is something we need to take a look at through the subdivision land development process. If you can't maintain a 100-foot buffer, then you're supposed to put up a double row of evergreen plantings, having a minimum height of 8 feet, and place no more than 16 feet apart one center. So in order to get a 100-foot buffer, you would have to do some planting of trees.
As part of the subdivision land development ordinance. Yeah. Okay.
Any other questions from the board? Does any board member think we need to take a position on this or just remain neutral?
I recommend we stay neutral.
Okay. Thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you.
Good luck at the ZHB.
Thanks.
Agenda item Agenda item number 7 is a discussion on a proposed amendment to section 845716 of the zoning ordinance. And Kristen, would you like to introduce this one?
So as is normally the case, sorry about that, when applications come in, we realize that there's sometimes issues with the ordinances. We believe that these provisions in your zoning ordinance, it's one specific section, 84-57.16, were probably adopted when Westchester University came forward, and I don't remember what year it was, but instituted a geothermal well system. And there were issues about the scale of their project and where they were in relationship to residential properties. So I believe at the time these regulations were put into place. Shelby had an applicant come by, actually obtained a permit from Chester County for a geothermal well system, and then didn't realize there was a township requirement. So had their contractor start drilling the geothermal well for residential purposes, and I don't know how the township found out about it, but realized that they were not in compliance with the provisions in your zoning ordinance, which were more stringent in terms of setback requirements than the county permit requirements were. So we then, not really understanding myself, not knowing a lot about geothermal wells, Shelby, Brian, and Chris also sort of relying upon somebody else who knows a little bit more about it. We got in touch with Carroll Engineering, we talked to their I guess he was a soil scientist, a geologist who understood a little bit more about it. And where we landed was to try to not trip people up by having inconsistent regulations from what they have to do to get a well permit from the county versus what they have to do to get a permit, meet your zoning requirement. So that's the goal of these two sections, is to put them more in line with what the county requires. We also noticed in the county regulations, they differentiate their standards based on whether it's an open loop system or a closed loop system. Your regulations just dealt with whether it was serving a residential use or serving a non-residential use. So we've now introduced the concept that there could be different regulations based on whether it's an open loop or closed loop system. So changes, again, are really meant to comply and not be inconsistent with the county regs, and also recognize that the implication of a closed loop versus an open loop system are a little bit different. And if anybody asks me what those are, I'm going to defer to Brian to explain that better than I do. So the changes aren't, there's not a lot. So the two sections, the first paragraph, A, deals with if I as a homeowner am putting in a geothermal well to service my dwelling. And there we're going to require it that it's a by right use. You have to show that you have a copy of your permit from the county, and that you also have a soil and erosion permit, which is Chapter 69, so that you have a grading permit for that. If it's a closed loop system, it has to be 10 feet from a building foundation, and we also spoke with John Beswick. I wanted to put that in there as well. We got his comments on this. And 10 feet from a property line. And then if it's an open loop system, it has to be 30 feet from the building foundation and 10 feet from the property line. Open loop being that you're extracting water from the ground, and potentially there'd be more chance for subsidence. And that's why we think the 30-foot is, again, consistent with the county and differentiates if it's closed loop. For non-residential use, which is paragraph B, again, they're allowed by right in all districts. Again, you have to provide a copy of your county permit. You have to obtain the soil and erosion permit under Chapter 69. Whether it's closed loop or open loop, it has to be 30 feet from any lot which is used for a non-residential use. And then the setback is 100 if the property that is drilling the well, if it's abutting a residential use, it has to be 100 feet from that. So that was put in there, I believe, for the geothermal wells for the university, and we did not want to change that because they're already installed. We know that there was some concerns about the drilling operations that went on when they were being installed, so we wanted to make sure we kept that 100-foot setback. So those are the changes.
Just a quick question. In both sections A and B, there's a number 4 there, which would be a situation where the applicant is not the property owner. Can you give me an example where that may happen? Would that be like the contractor making the application?
No, what it was meant to be that if you're putting it on my land, so you have to show that you have an easement from me. So if proposed relocation property is owned by a person other than the applicant, you have to provide documentation that evidence that property owner has consented. So I read that as being if you put it on somebody else's property. If you're utilizing someone else's land for purposes of your geothermal well, you would show that you have proof, or there be an easement agreement, or you have consent to put it on somebody else's property. That's how I read that paragraph.
It could be for a PPA, somebody, I don't know, does Westchester University own their wells?
Yes, they do.
Clear about like-
They only service their buildings.
That's a carryover from the original ordinance, it's in there now, and it probably is in there if somebody wants to drill a well on a small lot and doesn't have room, they may be able to get an easement from their neighbor to drill in their land. And the well's in the ground on the neighbor. But that's a private property matter, it's just it's in there so we can pull up a permit and not let them drill if they're trying to drill on somebody else's property.
Right.
Kristen, what is the difference between either the residential use or the non-residential use between this and what the county has? Where are we more stringent?
The county doesn't differentiate between residential or non-residential. They just differentiate between closed loop and open loop.
Okay.
The major issue where this arose was in the isolation distance from the building foundation, and without any sort of differentiation between closed loop and open loop systems. The current ordinance stipulates that it has to be 30 feet from a building foundation. So that's where the issue arose.
Then all these other requirements at the county level, related to where, sewage system might be and everything else, that's all still applicable. They would not have got a permit from the county without being compliant with all those conditions. So we don't have to replicate all those.
Right.
Right.
We even had a conversation among us about do we even need township regulations, to be honest, because you don't monitor, you don't issue permits for wells, just regular wells. But in talking with John Beswick and Andrea, they felt that there should be, because of the concern about how close it gets to a building foundation, and we just felt like let's keep it. And then also knowing that there was quite a history when the university installed their systems, we didn't want to just completely get rid of it. And then, we didn't want there to be unintended consequences or residents in and around the university to think you were somehow taking away protections that were afforded them when they first came in. So we decided to leave it where it is.
Kristen, do we need to mention in our document that they have to also follow the Chester County Health Department rules and regulations?
They won't get a permit if they don't. They won't get the permit.
Okay.
So that's one of the things they have to show.
Okay, we don't need to reference in our ordinance.
No.
They have to provide us with their county permit.
First.
Yes.
As part of the application to the township. They provide the county permit.
Other questions from the board? So the situation that arose where somebody thought just by getting a county permit was enough, how do we prevent that from reoccurring in the future?
Unfortunately, I don't think you can.
Okay.
Well, put it in your newsletter, put it on your website, put it,
Okay.
word out somehow.
Can't solve all the problems, right? So.
If I don't know if there's certain companies that are the likely companies that do the work, to just maybe notify them. I don't know.
The counties couldn't put it in their document saying, go to local townships and see if there's any requirements?
It's a standard, it's the same permit as you get for drilling a drinking well.
Yeah.
It's just labeled, it's just at different sections of the county that they.
Well, the permit is, but couldn't they put it in the actual regulations that you should also check with your local townships?
No, because as Brian is saying, they regulate these the same way they regulate drinking water wells. It's all through the same guidelines, and they don't have any of that stuff for drinking water wells. We don't regulate those at all.
Good contractors typically know to look at all the different locations where there's permit requirements, so you'd hope that they do
In
that.
this case, we found out about it because the contractor came to the window and asked what inspections we would require for the geothermal well they were starting to drill that day.
Mm-hmm.
That's how we found out about it. They came to us when they were starting to drill, they asked us what inspections we wanted to see.
Okay.
And that's what we found out about this.
All right, so tonight we're looking to see if the board's ready to approve having this authorized for advertisement and then having it proceed to the Chester County Planning Commission, correct?
Yes.
All right. I do, yeah. So is the board member willing to make the motion to authorize this for advertisement and to proceed to the Chester County Planning Commission? So,
I'll make that motion.
thank you, Tina.
Just as you said.
All right, Tina and then Nate.
And this also gets reviewed by the planning commission in Chester County.
Yes, I just mentioned that. So, any other final comments or questions from the board? Is there anyone in attendance has a question?
I got one
Sal?
question. What's why the differentiation between commercial and residential use? I don't see any.
rationale.
Well, as we said, because the ones that were done for Westchester University, there's a provision about distance 100 feet from a residential use.
Right, so I'm saying, is that needed anymore or not? Or-
It is, we didn't want to get rid of that because that,
Okay, so the differentiation, because you have it,
It already existed, so they built their system to that standard. To change it, now someone says, why was I held to this different standard?
mine will be residential, so I don't care. Okay, fine.
Any other questions? Charlie?
Are we even allowed to drill water wells on our property?
If the county allows you.
Yeah, the county
You're
allows.
perfect.
If you meet all the criteria that's required, you know.
Okay.
You don't want to use public water anymore,
That's right.
the price. Well, you've got that quality problem, right? Don't you have a quality problem with aqua?
We all do.
Yeah,
Well, you're-
So you're not just picking on me. So the open well system, they extract water out. Where does the water go?
Well,
I don't know enough about the technology. It's
what else are they down?
I think the county regulations says you cannot discharge it to the surface, so you have to put it back into the ground.
I can't imagine, I don't think there's anyone that's.
Westchester University is.
Well, let me
Their
rephrase
system-
it. There's no contractor that's gonna come to your house and recommend that anyway.
Right.
It's a cheap, not as,
Yeah.
but I wouldn't do it.
That's all the questions right there.
Okay, any other questions?
It's cheap,
All right, so we're ready to take a vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposition? Hearing none, the motion passes 5-0. Thank you, Kristen.
Sure, thank you, everybody helped me.
So next on the agenda is item number 8, which is possible approval of resolution number 7, 2025. So before the board this evening is proposed resolution number 7, 2025. This would replace resolution number 11 from 2022, which formed the Land Planning Committee and was adopted by the board at the July 19th, 2022 meeting. The primary reason for this change is to adjust the membership of the Board of Supervisors' representation on this committee. Previously, the representation was the chair and the board liaison to the Planning Commission. The proposed resolution today would amend the representation to be any member of the Board of Supervisors and the board liaison to the Planning Commission. Additionally, the representation of the township staff has been changed in order to accurately reflect the positions regarding this zoning ordinance update, regarding oversight of the zoning ordinance update. Supervisor Ashley Garnier served on this committee during the course of 2024 and has been involved in the work associated with the update to the zoning ordinance to date, and we're recommending that she continues to be the board's representative on the Land Planning Committee, and that will maintain continuity in the representation together with Vice Chair John Hellman, who is our board liaison to the Planning Commission. So that's what's before us. Does the board have any questions about the resolution?
I think it makes sense. I'll make the motion that we approve.
Thank you, John. I will second it. Any public comments or questions on the resolution? All right, well, let's take a vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposition? Hearing none, it passes 5-0. I presume that includes your continued representation on the thing. Thank you. I appreciate it. Moving on to agenda item number 9, which is possible approval of resolution number 8, 2025. So the proposed resolution number 8, 2025, this resolution would establish the billing rates for fire companies servicing West Goshen Township to seek reimbursement for certain costs. The board adopted ordinance number 3, 2023 on February the 7th, 2023, which permits fire companies and departments servicing this township to seek reimbursement for certain costs. These rates have been established by resolution of the board previously, and the attached rate schedule has been provided by the billing company utilized by the fire companies that serve the township. So it's an update to these potential billing costs. So does the board have any questions about this resolution? No? Okay. This one.
Just to make it clear, clarify that this resolution would allow the fire companies to seek reimbursement for items used on a fire call, but it's only through the insurance company, not to the individual homeowner.
That's correct.
Or property owner. Let's be perfectly clear about that.
Yep.
And if they try to do otherwise, it would revoke their authority from the board to do that.
Do we know if there's been any billing of insurance for fire incidents in the last 2 years since this has been established? Does anyone have any information on that?
Grant Everhart from Goshen.
Hey, Grant, how are you?
Yes, we do, Bill.
Okay, how often do you bill, do you think?
Probably 5 times a month,
Wow, how much?
mostly accidents,
Okay, vehicle accidents?
mostly.
Do you actually get the money from the insurance companies?
Yeah, we collected, well, including 2023 and 2024, we're up to about $50,000.
50?
50, about 29 of that's in West Goshen.
Okay.
Because of we have more accidents in West Goshen than in the other townships.
Well, that's not good to hear.
They don't call them.
More population, right?
Yeah. Blame it on that.
Okay,
How about you, Steve? Or-
Well,
Oh, I'm seeing the back there.
I'm back here.
I'm sorry, I didn't see you.
I believe we've only billed for one, an incident metallurgical in West Goshen.
Yeah, West Goshen.
Yeah, we haven't, we don't, you know, they respond to EMS, unlike us, we're just a fire department side. So as far as I did my research, we've only billed one time, and that was for a major loss of personal protective gear that we wear in our air packs that were damaged from the materials used in the plant that was a high value loss.
That's pretty good.
okay.
It's just approval of the rates.
Right, right.
Correct. The authority to bill this is enshrined in the Code of Ordinances in Chapter 37A. So this is just the rate schedule.
How often are we going to be doing this? Is
So
it every year, or is this like?
It only says from time to time, so it would be as these get updated. And the last time this was done was May of 2024.
So the prices have changed or were
No, so
the same?
those are the same prices as last year. We just submitted them so that we would be up to date with the township.
I mean, it's not a bad practice to do it each year. It doesn't hurt, but the ordinance doesn't specify that it must be done annually.
Okay, were you two guys okay with the costs that are in here? That
We're
were there
okay-
last
we're okay
year?
with them.
You're okay with them?
They're the reasonable, or that's what they bill for all the companies.
This is statewide, these PA fire recovery service rates are statewide, so.
Well, I believe the actual rates are set regionally. I know they cover the state, but I think there's like a regional differentiation.
There can be. That's just their sort of customary rates. We just follow that.
Can you be higher? Are you allowed to be higher?
We would submit that to you.
Yeah,
Might get
we're
pushed back from the
approving.
insurance company then.
Yeah,
Might
yeah.
get pushed back.
Push back on the
They,
insurance?
it might be like a health insurance where they agree to pay a certain rate.
Yeah.
You know.
Okay, I was just curious. Okay.
Okay, so is a board member willing to make the motion to approve resolution number 8, 2025?
So,
Thank you, John. Nate, a second. Thank you. Is there any other public comment or question on this resolution? Charlie?
Charlie Golden, West Goshen. And a lot of these questions come from Margie Swart. We've been working on this today, and I might jump around a little bit, but let's try to get through this straight line. To finish off what has been billed, Margie's discussion with the Pennsylvania Fire Recovery Services today says they have an outstanding invoice to the post office for $22,000. Does anybody know that? So, it brings into question, who is the PAFRS? Well, the PAFRS, according to the Dun & Bradstreet, is an LLC. I forget if this came off of a current website, but they may have 3 employees. They were sued in 2018, and some of the things I'll talk about tonight is in relation to that lawsuit. Let me just say again, back to the car accidents. It seems that that is a big thing for them. The lawsuit was a class action suit, but in particular the document I'm looking at was a lawsuit for a 3-car accident. They billed all 3 car owners' insurance companies for the same amount. And it's unclear if this lawsuit was ever settled, but I think we need to call into question who is the PAFRS, and are we going to allow them and their predatory tactics, in my opinion, their predatory tactics, here in this township. It appears that we're not going to affect tonight the 5-0 vote that you'll probably do for these rates. I'm simply stating some of the things we've learned in just 24 hours for the sake of the public awareness that if PAFRS is truly getting 15%, as I believe is stated in their policy on all these claims, then they're highly motivated to go after as many of these claims as possible, including, like stated in the class action lawsuit, suing multiple people over the same bill. Margie asked, well, are we going to go after residents? And I believe, Sean, you discussed with Margie, and there has to be a certain limit of when we would apply these.
So it's only on to insurance companies. The ordinance clearly states that only insurance companies can be billed, no individuals.
In fact, it's just, I can read the part of the code, revocation of granted authority. Any attempt by a fire department or third-party billing service to recover costs from any individual or entity other than the appropriate insurance company or carrier shall result in the immediate revocation of the authority to recover such costs granted under this chapter. So that's very clear.
So let's not try to differentiate between houses or car accidents or anything to do with electric vehicles or even multifamily, let's say multiple houses. I don't know how you would straighten that out, which gets me back to an old subject about Farmington Lane's exposure to a major fire with all the dead wood sitting at the top of Cooper Smith Park. I can't imagine if that, like LA, ever decides to get hit by lightning and lose an entire street. So, with all that said, it seems that also in this class action lawsuit is these people were getting their bills 11 months down the road. That's after PAFRS was dealing with their insurance companies. So also part of the lawsuit was that PAFRS failed to notify those people when they file against the insurance companies. They also failed to inform the victims of their right to dispute the supposed obligations as required by the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, the FDCPA. Again, I don't know how this was ever resolved, but my point is we've just licensed these people to run through our township, possibly doing the same things, and I don't know if anybody has an answer that they are or are not doing that.
The ordinance doesn't allow someone to be, the PAFRS or the fire departments themselves are not allowed to bill individuals. So.
No, but they contact the insurance companies, and no one knows that they've contacted their insurance company until 11 months down the road, and that allows them to not be able to dispute that charge to the insurance companies. And then here's something that's recently happened. It happened because of hail, hurricanes, fires in California. Recently, 2 of my friends have lost their house insurance because they were told they filed a second claim on their insurance. So if you don't even know that there's a company like a PAFRS filing claims on your insurance, and then you have, let's say, maybe water in your basement, and you file a second claim, you run the risk, in real time today, you run the risk of losing your house insurance and having to go out and shop again. None of this is made up. All of this is extracted from Pennsylvania, or extracted from a lawsuit in New Jersey in 2018. So I would ask, for the sake of protecting our residents, that the board look into the application and the rules, which appear right now quite arbitrary, the rules for letting these people into our neighborhood. I would say, Charlie, hey, you don't know what you're talking about, except for the gentleman back there that said, look, they've already raised $50,000 off of car accidents in West Goshen.
That's not what he said. What he said is they recovered $50,000 in billing. I think you said $29,000 was associated with vehicle accidents. Is that correct, Fran?
A mixture of vehicle accident and fire calls.
And it's not PAFRS that's going after anybody, it's the local fire companies that are going out to these accidents and using resources that they pay for that are recoverable by somebody's insurance. So it's not, the township isn't authorizing PAFRS to do anything. All they're doing is utilizing what PAFRS is recommending is the value of a material or something that these fire companies have to go out and pay for. The township is trying to find funding mechanisms for these organizations to be able to provide services to its municipality and its residents. So it's not authorizing anything by PAFRS.
And the township has
anything for PAFRS.
And the township has no contract with this company. It is the authorization that was approved by the board in 2023 allows for Westchester Fire Department, Goshen Fire Company to contract with a third-party company to be able to recover these costs through insurance companies. That is the authority that was given to them. There is no contract with the township. The Board of Supervisors isn't approving any kind of a contract. In fact, when this was originally discussed, it was added in there to have a resolution for the rate schedule, to provide some level of oversight for the township. Other than that, they are free to contract with whoever they believe is the appropriate individual, and I believe this company works with other fire companies and fire departments throughout Chester County. Is that correct, gentlemen? That's correct.
So thank you both for your clarifications. As you know, I stand here today claiming that I have never lied to the supervisor group, and I'm still looking for resolution of that. But I will always accept corrections, and thank you very much. So we did not have enough time today to look at what I think residents would call a loophole. Well, the loophole is that the township cannot, I believe, contract with the Fire Safety, PA Fire Recovery Services Act. I think you have some limitations there, but you can create an ordinance, and PAFRS will teach you how to create those ordinances. They run classes on that, I'm sure.
We didn't get this from PFRS or anybody. We got this from a sample from, I believe it was Tredyffrin Township, from a resolution. We got this through the Fire and EMS Coalition. It was an example that was discussed with them.
Yeah. Right, and on their website you will find that the PAFRS has sample resolutions for all townships. So I'm sure something started with the PAFRS. This one person and maybe his 2 employees started this company about 10, 15 years ago. So I'm just announcing all of this to keep a heads up, have our residents keep a heads up. This is going on. You might know it until half a year, maybe a year later, that your insurance company was contacted. And I checked my insurance companies. Does everybody understand? Did anybody check their home insurance?
I just want to say this ordinance was also run by the coalition, and we have experts that know this area, and if they had any input, they certainly would have given it. They're the best of the best. So I appreciate you saying that, but I just want to let you know we did have the experts who've been doing this for what, 25, 30 years? I don't know. I don't want to make you old.
No, I understand that.
Yeah.
I understand. Thank you very much, Ms. Lee. Thank you very much. But the residents don't know this. And the poor people who get in car accidents get an additional notice that now they owe the money and not the insurance company.
No, that's not true.
Right here, I'll tell you, right here in the lawsuit, it says,
that's a different lawsuit, not related to us.
Denied. This is now your responsibility.
Okay, Charlie, you're reading from a lawsuit in New Jersey. That is a different ordinance. That is a different state that operates under different local jurisdiction than Pennsylvania. You are reading from a lawsuit in New Jersey.
And if we ever found a situation like that occur, then we would revoke their ability to be able to collect any reimbursement charges.
The fire companies know, just as what Vice Chairman Hellman just said. If they go out and they go after residents outside of the provisions of this ordinance, this board will not hesitate to revoke their authority.
Again, thank you very much for that clarification. I'm surprised that you knew that this lawsuit was from New Jersey.
You said that.
Okay.
All right, thank you, Charlie. Have you made any points? You got anything else you want to make relative to this particular motion?
Yeah, I just want to let the residents know that their homeowner's insurance probably covers about $500 of additional fees from a fire company if they respond to an emergency.
They're not on the hook for anything that the fire companies consume in terms of materials and resources beyond that, because this ordinance doesn't allow recovery from individuals. Thank you.
Thank you.
And just on that point there, it's very clear in the resolution there that they're only allowed, the applicable insurance company carry up to the limit of the applicable insurance company carry policy limits. So they would not be able to go above any amount that's already covered with their insurance policy.
Right, and again, recent examples are people are losing their home insurance when they put in the second claim.
Okay, is there any other comments, public comments, Doug?
Thanks, Charlie. Doug White, West Goshen. Is this one?
Should be, unless the battery's died.
Okay, well, I'll speak for him. Who created the fee schedule?
The third-party billing company.
Okay, does the fire company have any input on that fee schedule?
I do.
Yes?
Yes, we agree with.
So did you give them the numbers? Or did they provide the numbers and then you just said yes?
We had lengthy discussions with them, and generally, we agree with the numbers.
Okay, so if there's an automobile accident and someone's not at fault, and then the fire company goes and helps with that, what is their subrogation, and if you go?
That's between the insurance companies.
Okay, I think, it's just my opinion, instead of, I know this was passed in 23, I couldn't be at that meeting because I was sick, but maybe they can increase the funding to the fire companies by earmarking a portion of the millage rate out of the real estate tax. That's it. I know you want to recover costs, but it indirectly can draw in the homeowners. I know that the homeowners, you can't go after the homeowners, but indirectly, the insurance companies can penalize the homeowners, even if it's not their fault. So, anyway, that's my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Doug. Any other comments or questions?
I got two benign questions, but.
Yes, Don.
And I agree that going after a homeowner or insurance company, to me, it's the same thing, indirect. But normally this board always says they like when there's a standard, and I'm brand new to this as of an hour ago. You normally, benchmark against other townships. Do other townships do this? Or I don't know if that's to you.
Yes.
Yes.
Would other townships do this locally, around?
Borough passed one, Easttown Township passed one, I know.
True different.
East Goshen, West Town.
Okay. So, and again, I don't know anything about the 23 ordinance, whatever. Is there criteria, official criteria, or something at least somewhat objective on when you can recover funds and when you can't? Because I know, I have friends that are firemen or whatnot, and I recognize, you have to triage a call when it comes in and how much equipment goes out or whatnot, but is there some level of standard of, how much you send out, and more importantly, when does one go and recover costs? That's the only other question I got. I don't know.
It depends on the equipment we use and the people we send. If we use certain equipment, we bill for it. We don't make a decision one call versus another, because it wouldn't be fair to bill one person and not another. So based on the equipment we use and the people we send.
So in 23, again, I've not read anything. So in 23, the board approved what so that this can occur?
We approved an ordinance that allowed the fire departments to recover certain costs when they respond to an incident.
Okay.
We have this. All we're doing here is just setting the rate for it.
That's not the way. So back in 23, was there any criteria to allow the fire company to do that? Or was it just?
Are you talking about like a number?
Pardon?
Are you talking about like a certain amount of money?
Well, no, I don't know. It could be just, I don't know if it's a number or I don't know.
It was not a number. It is related to certain costs, and it's explained in the ordinance, typically related to hazardous materials, spill cleanup, this kind of thing.
Okay, I'll read it.
What's the ordinance number, Chris?
Yeah.
It's ordinance 3 of 2023. It's chapter
Well,
37.
is it in here?
It's chapter 37A of the code of ordinances, it's all available online.
I got it right here. Okay, I'll answer my own question. That's it.
Grant, I have a question. So that when you do the bill, are you informing FRS, PAFRS to what the costs were involved, and they then take the billing to the insurance company, or are they, how do you get the information as to what was consumed, what issues, what costs were involved to them
We send them a list of the equipment that we use,
for that particular incident?
yes. And any staffing that was involved in the call as well.
Okay.
And then they just apply to that fee schedule, and that's how they come up with the billing amount.
Okay.
Now, when you go out and then you find it's a false alarm, do you bill that?
No.
That's handled through, that would then just be handled through our false alarm fine fee
I
schedule
understand. I
ordinance.
want to make sure that, I want to see whether or not the fire company also billed as well.
No, we don't.
So, and that's almost half of your calls so far as false alarms.
Yes, 41% of our bills.
And the borough has the same process, pretty much? Okay.
So an accident occurs, cleaning up the mess of that accident falls on the insurance company that covered the individual involved with that accident. That's what I'm hearing tonight, is the way it works for you. Yes?
Yes.
And the absence of being able to recover any costs, money still needs to be found to fund fire companies, right? So this is just one small amount of revenue for you, relatively speaking. And it covers the cost of an insurable accident, that your cost involved with an insurable accident, correct?
That's correct.
Yes, Doug.
If we're a member of the fire company and give a donation, will you still, and we need your services, will you still bill our insurance?
Yes.
Even for a member of the fire company?
So you're talking like a social member
Yes.
or an active member?
Social, where we give a donation?
Or just a donating
Yes.
resident? We would still submit the bill to your insurance.
Okay, any other questions?
So for Margie Swartz' edification, her understanding is that this would only occur for major events. Apparently, it occurs for every event except false alarm.
Well, it's not every event, is it? It's not responding to a house fire situation. In Westchester Fire Respond, they're not billing for it.
Yeah, Westchester only had one, from what he said.
There's a differentiation between fire departments and how they're using this ability.
So major events doesn't mean anything? What's the definition
Well,
of major
let's
events?
Westchester Fire. Do you have when do you bill for this? You said one situation.
Yeah, for us, the definition is if we have a high value loss of equipment that we've used to respond to the incident, and we determine how much is involved in replacing that equipment because it gets extremely expensive. And that is the one time that we use it, and that is what we apply to. So I can't sit here and give you every incident that we could bill for. It's just we, as the incidents come in, and we evaluate them, and if it's necessary, to bill.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? All right. We'll take a vote. I think we have a motion on this, don't we?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
All right. So all in favor, say aye. Aye. Is there any opposition? Hearing none, the motion passes 5-0. And now we're on to agenda item number 10. Possible approval of the contract with Civic Plus. So before the board this evening is a new hosting and service contract with Civic Plus for the West Goshen Township website. The proposed agreement would be for 48 months with an initial rate for the first year of $6,189.84 and an increase of 5% each year. The board previously approved utilizing Civic Plus for the township website in 2020. Does the board have any questions on the proposed service contract?
I just have one more comment on the actual Civic Plus. I guess it would be considered an invoice or a contract. Up top, they mentioned 48 months this contract would be for, but it's not really 48, it's 12 months. Unless, as listed at the bottom on number 2, it's 12 months. In the event you don't give 60-day notice, then at that point it will be renewed for another year, which would be the 48 months. So I just thought up top it should really be consistent, 12, with that same wording that's down the bottom.
Well, it's saying you're agreeing to these terms for 48 months, and then you can separate with 60 days notice.
Yeah, that's what it's saying now at the bottom, but at the top of the chart, it just says 48. So they should just be consistent, that's all. It should say in the chart, 12 months with another additional 12 months if no 60-day notice is given.
Well, I think that's why there's the provision in number 2, kind of saying it's essentially year to year, with at the end of each coverage year, you can give 60 days notice to get out of it.
Okay, I just wanted to be consistent in there, and I didn't want it to be confusing.
And I went back and looked at how this compared to the original contract that was approved in 2020, and the provisions in terms of what's included and the items outlined at the bottom are identical to what was previously approved.
Yeah. Chris, could you just explain what a redesigned Civic Engage central renewal scope of work is?
I did reach out to our contact at Civic Plus for a better definition of that, but I believe it is if we want to do any kind of like overhaul or any work associated with the website, that's covered in here. Because they already built the framework for it in 2020 when it was migrated over.
Okay.
And the another question that we get all the time is what the SSL is. That's a security protocol for websites. So when you see HTTPS, it provides the security for the website.
Have there been any issues with Civic Plus with the website?
Not that I'm aware of. I find it very easy to use.
I mean, one thing, we are building in a 5% annual increase here, which to me is a little
high.
Maybe a little high compared to expectations of inflation, et cetera, going forward. So, but we do have the right to.
But that would
exactly. That's why I didn't say anything.
I will note this: even at 5%, if you calculate it out, you're going to spend almost as much of the same amount as you spent when the original contract in 2020 was paid for to redesign the website, because that was about a little over $23,000 up front for them just to do the website.
Yeah,
so
5% is $300.
And they are giving us. I'll also note that on the first year they're giving us a $300 credit, so the first year is actually going to be below this number.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from the board?
Yeah, I just have another question. If the contract was terminated with Civic Plus, what guarantees do we have that the township will be able to make a transition? Do we actually own the website?
I believe under our master services agreement, we own the content of the website.
Okay. So we would be able to do a seamless transfer if we found ourselves willing to do that?
We could, yes. But again, it'll probably, 2020 was $23,000. I've priced these out before. It would probably be between $23,000 and $30,000 to migrate everything over to a new vendor.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, would the board member like to make a motion to approve the service contract with Civic Plus in the amount of $6,189.84? Does that include the credit? Or?
No, that's before the credit. The credit's about $300, so the actual invoice is $300 less than this.
Okay, thank you.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Tina. Is there a second? Thank you, Ashley. Any comments or questions from anyone? Sal?
John, just a comment. I doubt you have a seamless transition between companies, but that's not the question. Has anyone asked for something less than a 3% escalation rate?
If I were to
5% escalation rate, say 4 or 3. Why don't we ask? Does anybody ask?
Well, 5% was what was agreed to in 2020.
So, for another 4 years beyond?
Yes, their standard is 5%.
No, I get the standard is 5%. So you're going to a new contract, it's going to say, hey, just stick with us this much, but we only want a 2.5% escalation rate, or 2 or 3 or 4.
If the board decides to go with it, they can terminate the contract within 20 days with 60
No, I get it.
days.
So I'm just saying, did anybody ask before we go into this, hey, we want a contract, but the escalation rate's less than 5%? That's all I'm just asking. So that's this question. They can say no.
I did not speak
You
to
can't
that.
ask for that. Next year's 12 months isn't up yet.
No, but
Well, I'm saying, so
to Sal's point, we raised the question here, right?
Yeah.
We could say, we don't want to approve it tonight, Chris, go back and see if you can get 3%.
Yeah.
Save us $100 a year, Okay, that's for 3%. Or I'm more interested in, I'd like to see us utilize the scope of services provided in this, which is to have a bit of a better refresh on the website. And then we'll be seeing if they're happy with 5%, because they probably won't, because $100 is 1 hour's worth of their work.
No, and I agree with that. The point is that, you know, I get, you get, in any company, right, you get comfortable with a platform, and that concerns me. When you get, you know, familiarity breeds contempt, if you will, even on prices and services. I agree, the refresh is
Better,
yeah, at best. Okay, I'm just.
No, thank you for your point. We're listening. We're listening.
Okay.
All right, so is there any other comments or questions? All right, so we do have a motion, yes, and we'll take a vote then. All in favor say aye. Aye. Is there any opposition? Hearing none, it passes 5-0. Now we're on to agenda item number 11, which is possible approval of easement agreements at 962 West Penn Drive, 963 West Penn Drive, and a property UPI number 523N-21.1, which is the North Hills Civic Association. So Chris, this is quite complicated, I think, so if you wouldn't mind introducing the subject here.
Yes, Mr. Chairman. So before the board this evening are the easement agreements for the North Hills Storm Sewer Project. This project is being partially funded through a grant received through a special round of the PA Small Water and Sewer Program. You outline the easement agreements with the property owners that are involved in this project. All the easement agreements before the board have been signed by the property owners. In addition, the West Goshen Township Sewer Authority improved the consent for the owners at 963 West Penn Drive in order for the shed on their property to remain in its current location. However, if it must be moved in order to maintain the sanitary sewer line, the property owners will absorb that cost. Brian Kolakowski, as well as Chris Peterson from Carroll Engineering, have had multiple on-site meetings with these property owners. I want to thank Brian for all of his engagement with them. And in addition, Brian and I are going to be attending the Civic Association meeting next week to discuss this project. As these have been signed, we have authorized Carroll Engineering to proceed forward with the final design for this project to get it ready to go out to bid.
Thank you, Chris. Well, Kristen, your office prepared all these agreements, right?
That's correct.
Okay.
There was some back and forth with all the property owners with different requests for edits and changes that we all discussed as a group and agreed to certain changes.
Okay, thanks.
Make them satisfied.
Actually, not the Johns, not Mr. Johns or Ms. Johns Fink. They signed right away as soon as it was presented to them.
Yeah. Are there any questions from the board on the agreements? Easement agreements?
On the copies we have, we don't have the signatures from the township. Who's supposed to sign from the township?
Chairman.
The chairman will sign. I did update those for the ones for signature.
Okay, so does Ashley sign? Because I know
No,
these
he
are
changed.
current.
I sent him a revised acknowledgement page.
Gotcha.
He thought we were going to
Sean has to sign to get a note of it.
Yes, that's correct. And then we'll record them.
We believe that I'm just asking the question so everyone knows, the easement areas that have been designated on the 3 properties are sufficient to be able to access and execute the design of the project, even though we still have some final design work to do.
Yes. Yeah, sure. Brian, can you bring the plans up, please?
I can explain the final design that has to be completed. The final design is going to be some alternates to what you see in the plan. The current plan is regrading of the swale on the Rainier property, placing the pipe under the road, which currently discharges about here on the Finks property into the channel line, the collapsing concrete line channel that does this. To get to this is the route the water now takes to get to the pond. It goes in this big loop. We're going to cut that loop off and bring it down, and then we have the stilling basin here. Alternate 1 is going to be extend the pipe to the water, get rid of the stilling basin, and replace it with a water quality structure here in the street.
Which side of the street, Brian?
On the south side, on the Fink side.
Okay.
So that would be there in the street, which would filter the water and clean the water. It's collected, which is upstream, and then this is just discharge. This is all pipes and manholes, so there's no new water entering the system once it gets down below on the south side of Penn Drive there. That's alternate 1. Alternate 2 is going to be to try to extend some pipe on the north side of East Penn for connection of a future phase. So those are some of the options we've discussed with the Civic Association and with Beverly as well.
And the extension of the pipe is intended to utilize the full amount of the grant that we saw?
Yes,
Yeah.
that would be the grant, and also that would allow us to connect additionally to get up to North Penn Drive.
Are we going to be getting any credits for PRP for this, or emission reduction?
No. We're not proposing any sort of structure to do anything for the PRP. All this is for is to clean the washout here and alleviate a lot of the issue of the silting of the pond.
What determines which option we go with?
Cost. And that is.
So I believe, Brian, there's what, 3 or 4 alternate bid options on this project?
Chris and I laid them all out.
Okay.
Yes.
And when do you anticipate those being ready to go out for bid?
I hope to have the bid set complete by Chris in 4 to 6 weeks.
Okay. And the work is intended to be done summertime?
Well, there is one caveat on the
Oh, yeah.
Right down the center of, right here in this location is a water line. Aqua has agreed to relocate the line, lower their cost, but we're at their mercy to lower it before we do the project.
Okay.
When you anticipate it be put out to bid?
We're hoping to have a bid set ready for authorization in 4 to 6 weeks to figure out the bid.
And the grant is covering, I believe, 70% of the project cost,
I think that sounds right.
based on the cost
But we
estimate.
get it out to bid, we'll have the contract awarded, the start date is pending Aqua.
Okay. Any other questions for Brian or Chris? Chris Smith?
And just so the board's aware, our grant contract is 3 years from execution, which was early 2024. So we're about halfway through our grant contract timeline.
Okay. What do we think ARPA's response is going to be to timely relocation?
When we spoke with them in September, they were looking at March.
Okay.
But I haven't heard the confirmation if we're on their schedule for March or not.
Okay. So you're going to be able to get an update from them soon, I would hope.
I hope to have an
March
update
is right around the
in
corner.
next 2 weeks.
Okay. Any other questions? All right. I will make a motion
Steve
to...
has a question.
Oh.
Does the Civic Association take care of the basin then, or we?
If the basin is built, the current agreement is if the Stilling Basin is built, they're responsible to maintain it.
Okay, well,
One of the things about it, if you put the water quality structure here in the street, it's in the right of way, we'll maintain it as a township. It will be an inlet, a structure within a structure, it would be an internal structure that we would maintain. They would not maintain it, which is, and also they don't give up all this land that they have to give up for us to create a basin. The basin was put in at their request, Stilling Basin. But at their request, that also then means they have to maintain it.
Okay, so I'll make a motion to approve the easement agreements with the 3 properties. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Nate. Any final comments, questions from any of the board or anyone in attendance? Okay.
I just want to make a comment. I know the Northville folks are really looking for this to happen. So it's something that is a great thing for the township to be doing.
Okay, well, then we're ready to take a vote. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Is there any opposition? Hearing none, the motion passes 5-0. Very good. We're now on to agenda item number 12, which is reports for the month of December. And we start with police report from Chief Michael Carroll.
Thank you. I have 2 reports for you tonight, one for the month of December 2024 and one for the year of 2024. I'll start with December. We responded to 2014 calls for service. 60 of those were alarms. 1 of those alarms was found to be valid. And we responded to 95 accidents, 21 of which were reportable. And we drove a total of 17,497 miles. We performed an extra traffic enforcement on Green Hill Road, Slater Avenue, and Falcon Lane, Haley Pike, Route 202, South Point Points Road, Taylor's Mill Road, South High Street, and North Main Street. Aside from our normal monthly trainings, Lieutenant Cotter completed his FBI National Academy. Officer Merritt attended an active shooter class. Sergeant Gilbert, Detective Edwards, Officer Graham, Officer Riley, and Officer Walsh performed honor guard training. Officer Byrne and Officer Myers went to child passive procedure certification class. And Sergeant Reiser and Officer Ash attended a quick response solution for crashes. In the area of alarms, 11 of the total alarms were in the highest violation area, either the 6th, 7th, or higher violation for the month. We performed 11 assists to other departments for a total of about 5 1/3 hours, and we received 22 assists from other departments. And that's the report for December. If you have questions, I'll take them. Otherwise, I'll do the year.
Questions for the chief? Is anyone in attendance have any questions on the monthly report?
Just want to make a comment. I want to thank you for feeling safe and stuff.
Thank you. I appreciate you feel safe.
I'm going to hold my question about alarms until we go to the
I have something else for you.
You know it's coming.
I was prepared for that.
So how about the year overall, Chief?
Okay, so for the overall year, we drove a total of 26,107, or excuse me, responded to 26,176 calls for service. 596 of those were alarms, with 33 being found to be valid. We responded to 873 accidents, 243 of which were reportable, and we drove a total of 238,374 miles. An extra look at the alarms. And I looked at it over the last 3 years, kind of since we changed the ordinance and raised the fines. May or may not have the action that we wanted. So the last 3 years, the alarms were 572, 604, and 596. So it kind of went up and down.
So that was 572, what, 3 years ago?
In 2022, correct. 604.
It says 606 on the sheet here, Chief, 23. I know we're only talking 2 difference, but...
So I don't know why it's different. I'm looking at 2 different sheets.
Okay.
And what was it for 24?
596.
596.
And of those violations, the year with the most high cost violations was 2024. It was one individual who went over and above all the rest, but it progressively rose through the 3-year period. The highest violation number by one resident in 2022 was 9. The highest violation in 2023 was 11, and this year we hit 14.
Going in the wrong direction.
Well, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, they're definitely paying more than our hourly rate to respond to this alarm.
So those 14, are they clustered within certain months, periods of the year? Is it, one a month? What is the kind of frequency?
So it was clustered together at one particular place, and I knew who it was, although I don't remember off the top of my head. It was a business, and I don't recall what their issue was, but they clearly had an issue.
Yeah.
And as far as the payments being received, overall, everyone is paying the violations. We have 3 that we're going to have to follow up on through Kristen. But other than that, the residents and business are paying the violation fine.
I mean, I think we mentioned in a previous meeting, and I know it was in the minutes, about wanting to kind of revisit where we are with penalties and clearing the slate at the beginning of a year, and whether that should be the case for certain things. So how do we progress the kind of thought exercise and what the way forward might be that could address this in a different way?
I don't know how you punish someone who has, more than one false alarm a month, but willingly pays $500 for, 7 of those.
Mm-hmm.
So just $3,500 in just the upper level violations. There had to be another 1,500 in the violations lower than that. Clearly, they are not motivated to correct their situation.
Well, it's kind of between a rock and a hard place, because we clearly want people to have working alarms.
We need to have that, yes.
Yeah,
And
we don't want them turning it off because they want to pay astronomical fines. But on the other hand, we don't want someone willingly let the system remain as is and keep generating false alarms. So.
We don't, but in the grand scheme of things, we need our residents to have the ability to have these alarms and not overburden if something goes wrong. And at $500, literally we're going to most of these alarms and spend between 15 and 25 minutes there, generally as a rule.
Mm-hmm.
Well, in 15 or 25 minutes with 3 officers there checking, we're still not going to touch $500.
I had two very quick questions.
Yes.
So they started the construction or the deconstruction of the Quality Inn?
Yes.
No calls? or-
Ever since they put the fence up, which was right after we brought up the meeting in November, I think, yes, the fence worked very well. It wasn't 100%, I think we had one after the fence, but none recently.
Okay. And then the other thing is the Chick-fil-A. Have you noticed any like crazy traffic issues?
Not at all, they're doing a fantastic job.
Really? So
Yes.
it's working?
Yes.
The way it was designed, it's really good.
Because
People are out there in the cold.
Yeah. Can I ask a question about the alarm? So when you have this property owner that's 14, I mean, is there a dialogue with them to try to, no? There's no
No.
dialogue to be like, hey, let's try to work a solution to this. I know that's not your
So
job. But I
that's
mean,
what
it
I mean
just
about
seems
the
like it all.
motivation. Their motivation is clearly nil if they're paying.
But it might be that they're like a national chain and I don't know, maybe it's just a bill they're
Bill
passing
just
on. It
shows up and they
just
pay.
seems
I
like,
don't think this one is, and I can follow up and get you the name.
I mean, are there reasons why there's, is it a faulty alarm or is it the reasons are?
No, I think the reason is multiple employees.
Oh, tripping it?
Yes.
Got it.
Well, I think where Kristen's going is a good idea. Can we set up a meeting with the property owner, discuss, we got 14 alarms from you over the course of the year, you just spent a lot of money on this, and you're also spending a lot of the resources of the police department.
Employees who are making $10 an hour aren't doing a very good job of adjusting the alarm, what are they gonna do?
Well, I mean, that's something they need to take a look at, some training of their employees, because they're costing the company a fair amount of money.
In today's day, we can look at it.
I'm just saying, I think that's something.
I think there has to be people come to work.
Especially for these high flyers, 14, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, and also, I have a problem with the fact that it gets reset starting in January. Now, you go to them again in January, February, you just get a warning.
I mean, I guess, back to my question around whether these things clustered around a faulty system that tripped it multiple times, multiple responses. I can see how it's someone who had a problem, got to a high level of calls, fixed the problem, and has now been quiet for several months, that they get a reset for this year. But someone whose operating mode is, we don't care if it's tripped every week.
And I say they don't care, but it's 14 times in a year, they had, let's just say, a new employee come in and open up and trip the alarm. 14 times is a lot on paper because it's the most we've seen, but if you're dealing with, I mean, Chick-fil-A probably has 25 employees. If one of them comes in and trips the alarm, and I think overall, so we had one person, and then if you go back to 11, we had 2, and 10 is 2. So really, only 2 businesses, and I'm sure they're both businesses, went over 9 violations in a year. But we had 312 have 1. And if we get rid of that early warning at the beginning of the year, that 312 could be getting billed, and they only had 1 violation a year.
I agree. That's why it's complicated to think through a strategy that does everything that we want. Right. So in comparison with other PDs and these alarm situations, do you have data that says?
I have no data. My feeling is it's the same.
Same issues.
I've worked in a couple places, and it's just, this is something we deal with. It's not really a big deal to us when we look at it. It's part of doing business.
Okay.
I have one question on the overtime cost statistics chart.
For the, I have to find, which chart are you looking at, for the year or the?
The 23 compared to 24.
All right, I have to find it, but go ahead, I'm listening.
Okay. In the overtime hours compared to 23 to 24, they went down by almost 300 hours.
Yes,
Okay,
yes.
that's good. But then on the reimbursement hours, it almost doubled, went from 158 to 304. So
Correct.
what is the reimbursement hours compared
Someone
to
else is
overtime?
paying the bill.
Oh.
So whether it's a grant or a business or a school, someone's reimbursing us for all that overtime.
So that's good.
It's really good.
Okay. That's all I have.
Right?
Chief, there's a tremendous amount of data here, with the year-on-year comparisons for the, Part 1 offenses, Part 2 offenses, et cetera.
Yes.
I don't know if you feel comfortable just giving your kind of feel for what the situation is relative to crime in West Goshen year on year, or if there's any discernible trends in any particular offenses. I know we've talked about, fraud and online issues, et cetera, but in terms of these Part 1 offenses, what are you seeing? Because we did have a resident come 2 or 3 meetings ago and express a kind of general concern about
So
his view of the world here in
I spoke
Goshen.
about that today, but I don't know any specifics about that. He never followed up with us.
Yeah.
I don't know who that person is. Generally speaking, the scams have gone down in number a little bit. I don't know if the cost has gone down, and we're still seeing victims, way too often. We have seen an uptick in burglaries in the area, in the township over the last 6 months, but generally in the region in the last 6 months. Not really sure what that is. We think some of it's an organized crime, and some of them are not. We've got crime detectives working on it. When I say an uptick, it's going from very few to a handful, not 20 or 30.
Anything else that stands out to you in terms of this data set
No.
relative to years past? No. Okay. Any other questions for the chief?
Yeah, can you give the board an update on where you're at as far as hiring new officers?
Yeah, we just did our PT test on Saturday. We have 20 people that passed the test, and we'll be interviewing all of them in the 3rd week of February.
And when do you anticipate the hiring to occur?
I feel confident that we'll have our eyes on a good candidate by mid-March.
Any other questions for the chief from the board? Doug, do you have a question?
Hey, Chief.
Yes.
For the false alarms, is this when either a residence or a commercial, they have central station reporting to you, and it's a silent alarm, and it's someone who comes in, they just forget or disarm it?
Well, that's how it occurs sometimes. They're always central station reported, and the reason for the false activation can be a lot of things. It can be a problem with the system, it can be someone accidentally hitting it, it could be someone, I don't know, breaking your window by accident. There's a lot of things that can set off the alarm.
Oh, okay, so it could be where it's operating properly, but there's just, it's like a human error.
Correct. That's the biggest error.
Any other questions? All right, well, thank you very much. This month there are also the end-of-year reports from Good Fellowship Ambulance, and there are full-year reports from the fire departments. Does the board have any follow-up questions that they would have for any of those organizations or not?
I do have one. Looking at the report from Westchester Fire Department, there was 54 false alarms in Cambridge Apartments, 500 West Rosedale Avenue. And out of 196 false alarms, that constitutes like 27.5% of those alarms are coming in from Cambridge Hall. So it really is an issue that I think needs to be addressed. I know there's been some movement on this. Andrew Tess has been in contact with the owners there, but hopefully there'll be a change in that over the course of this year.
Chris, have you any feel for whether we should be doing anything different other than just having Andrea working with them?
I do not. I would just leave it in Andrew's hands.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything else on that? Is that it, John? Okay. All right, then we'll move on to agenda item number 13, which is Board of Supervisors announcements. And we'll start to my left with Nate.
Thank you. December 19th, I attended the annual holiday event at the Township Building for our employees. On the 26th, I attended with Mr. Walsh the Woodlands at Greystone NIDMA meeting. January 7th, there was a meeting on America 250, which was held at the East Goshen Blacksmith Shop. What we're looking at there is the highlight's going to be a major event on May 30th, 2026 at the East Goshen Park. There's going to be 7 to 8 events that are planned between 2026 and 2027. Part of this could be trips to different sites dealing with the Revolution, possibly to Fort Mifflin, to the Constitution Center. Also thinking about having reenactments like we had for Thomas Jefferson and John Adams. So coming in 2026, things are going to really start happening as far as America 250 is concerned. On January 16th, I attended the Police Community Talk at Milestones, where the chiefs from West Goshen and Westchester attended. Unfortunately, the weather was bad, but it would really be good if our citizens could come out and support the local police departments, because they do put on a very good program, very informative. And they're talking about having joint sessions 2 to 4 times a year. That's it.
Thank you, Nate. Tina?
Okay. I guess December 18th, met with GFAC to review their budget. January 7th, I had the pleasure of writing, the police, it was a police traffic meeting, which was well attended, actually, I thought. And then on January 8th, I had the pleasure of riding with police in the police patrol. I learned a lot, as I always do. I came up with a suggestion that we talk to the police about, chief about, and also the board for the police, that I think will be a nice perk if we decide to go through with it. On January 14th, I attended the Zoom with the Chester County Planning Commission, who initiated or invited all SAC and EAC members to discuss their initiatives, goals, and achievements. So we learned a lot from that and kind of collaborate on a lot of efforts with all the different communities. On January 15th, I attended the Chamber of Business and Industry event on networking at Bella Vita Coffee in Axton Main Street. On January 16th, I attended the COG meeting, which is a very snowy and icy night. And then one thing that came out of the coalition, good thing that came out of the coalition, is just a little background. The Fire and EMS Coalition has been working on obtaining funding for an emergency blocking equipment for many months now, because the safety statistics for the fire and EMS personnel has gotten worse over the past 5 years. Currently, the emergency personnel are forced to block an emergency situation using a $2.5 million fire truck with 4 people aboard, which is not safe and extremely costly if it's destroyed in an emergency situation. We wanted to purchase a special equipment called emergency blocking equipment that will blunt the impact versus a fire truck that will take all of the impact, including the costs. We went out to our legislators first to see if the coalition could secure funding for the emergency blocking equipment. Therefore, in October 2024 EMS and Fire Coalition meeting, we invited Todd Lease, who is an industry expert on safety for emergency personnel, who did attend the meeting. Todd spoke on the safety aspect of emergency personnel and how critical the safety aspect with volunteer personnel getting severely injured or fatalities due to not having the proper safety equipment. He also presented different types of emergency blocking equipment with the estimated cost for the equipment. Todd spoke at the coalition to the members and also the legislators that we invited to speak about the safety statistics. The legislators that were in attendance at the coalition meeting to hear about the safety statistics and see if they can help the community were Senator Carolyn Comita, Michael Hartman, who is the Chief of Staff for Carolyn Comita, and State Representative Chris Paelli. Approximately 1 month after our legislators heard the safety statistics, Senator Carolyn Comita personally allocated $50,000 grant to be used for that purpose. I'm happy to say that we were awarded the grant at this point in time. As a result of the coalition meeting, not only were we awarded the grant, the senator also allocated another $50,000 grant to Good Fellowship to purchase a gator to be used in emergency situations, which will encompass Greystone. If that funding was not obtained for the gator, the respective townships would have had to each contribute a certain amount to purchase the gator, so there was a big cost savings for the township there as a result of the $50,000 grant. They were also given as a result of the conversations during the coalition meeting. We now have formed a subcommittee to discuss and handle the logistics associated with the emergency blocking equipment, like the insurance, where to store it, coordinating. We're also going to utilize the equipment with other nearby townships, therefore creating a collaborative approach to sharing equipment and resources with our nearby neighbors and working together as a partnership. And I want to personally say a special thank you to Kim Holman and Steve Pelna for getting involved in completing the lengthy application process for the grant and being able to actually get the grant.
Also, I want to say, I want to give you credit for being the motivating force behind pursuing that grant for the parking vehicle.
Thank you, Joan. Thank you.
Because I don't think it would have happened otherwise.
Thank you. It was a team effort.
Well done. Anything else, Tina?
No, that's it.
Okay, Ashley?
Actually, don't have any.
Okay, thank you. John?
Yeah, Wednesday, December 18th, I attended a meeting along with Tina Marie Smith at the Good Fellowship Ambulance Company to discuss their budget and future capital equipment purchases and capital projects. And on Tuesday, December the 24th, participated in the West Goshen Township Police Department annual Christmas gift distribution to families at the Domestic Violence Center here. And I just want to extend a thank you to Captain Domidio and the entire police department for organizing this. It's a great event they do every year. On Tuesday, January 7th, attended the West Goshen Police Department Traffic Committee meeting where we had good discussions about traffic concerns that the residents have. And we have one project on the board which we're going to pursue, and that is a pedestrian crossing there across from the East and Fugit campus sites to the ball fields. It's actually in East Goshen, but actually it's combined between East and West Goshen, but East Goshen has responsibility of that road.
Is that on Ellis Lane, did you say?
It's on Ellis Lane. So we're going to pursue that, and at this point, we're looking to have a meeting with Representative Pielli to look at how to proceed on trying to get this thing done and any great opportunities that may be out there. Tuesday, January 14th, I participated in the monthly Planning Commission meeting as a board liaison person. This included at that meeting an update on the zoning ordinance revision, which is being done along with our consultant, Gilmore Associates. And on Thursday, January 16th, participated in joint West Goshen Police Department and Westchester Borough Police Department community meeting along with Nate Woolman. He already reported on that. There was a good discussion of issues of concern by residents of both municipalities regarding policing in our area. And on Saturday, December the 18th, attended the physicals of the applicants for a new hire for the police department at the Henderson football field. I believe there's 20 applicants have applied for this. 25 have applied, if I got it right, and I think 20 have actually are eligible to go into the next step. And on Tuesday, January the 21st, attended the solar array project update meeting this morning. And then also on the 21st today, met with Chief Carroll, along with Tina Marie Smith, for the board's monthly liaison. And that concludes my report.
Thank you, John. I think between Tina going out for rides and John showing up at the physical, I think we got some candidates for you here as well. You might need to make it 22 for the next round.
No, the goal rest goes down to my knees. I couldn't take that every day.
Okay, so I just have a couple of announcements. I participated in the meeting that Nate mentioned about the Greystone NIDMA at the end of the year. The board met in executive session on January the 10th with the township manager to discuss 2025 performance objectives for him. And I attended the monthly project meeting for the solar array system earlier today. And just to report on that, the purchase orders have been placed for the solar panels. We do not have a firm delivery date yet, although it's looking like early second quarter, which will allow currently the schedule to be maintained, which was a mid-March, early April start, because the panels are the last thing to be installed, so they'll be towards the end of the 4 to 5 week construction period. However, personally, I do think they may end up being some slippage in that schedule, but overall, I still feel, based on assuming that we get the panels within the April-May timeframe, that the project can be completed by the end of May. Other equipment has already arrived, such as the inverters. They're being held by the contractor. And the price remains the same. There's no change orders to the system based on the material costs that have been experienced. Does anybody have any questions for the supervisors?
I just would add to that, because of the executive orders coming out of Washington, D.C. yesterday, the reimbursement we're looking to get from the Inflation Reduction Act has been paused, and we may not receive that to the township, which is going to amount to hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Okay, thank you, John. All right, Township Manager announcements, Chris?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. So the Township's monthly e-newsletter will be issued on January 24th, 2025. The township offices will be closed on Monday, February 17th in recognition of the President's Day holiday, but there will be no change to trash and recycling collection. The Kroll Bond Rating Agency is looking to complete their annual surveillance of the township to do their bond rating. We provided all necessary documents to have them completed, and our finance director and I are meeting with representatives from them on January 27th to review the report, and I'll provide a copy of the report to the board upon receipt. As the board's aware, in 2024 they reaffirmed the township's AA+ rating, and I have no reason to believe that that won't be reaffirmed again. The ordinances that are under review, the landscaping ordinance, revisions have been made by the township solicitor, and those have been circulated accordingly. I did ask Brian and Shelby to take a look at that prior to the next SAC meeting where they're going to be discussing that, which is next Tuesday, January 28th. And the historic resource ordinance updates have been made by the township solicitor, and those are going to be reviewed by the historical commission at their next meeting. The Pennsylvania Auditor General's office has completed the township's pension audit for the period of January 1st, 2019 through December 31st, 2023. There were no findings in their audit, but we have not received a copy of the audit report. There was a verbal recommendation that's going to be discussed further with the pension committee, and that related to the two non-uniform pension plans that the township has, in terms of merging those because the plans are identical. So that's going to be discussed by the pension committee, and they're meeting tomorrow morning. In terms of the township CD purchasing program, I outlined information for the 4 CDs that were purchased by the finance director. These were all with TD Bank. There were none purchased with Pliget or Santander Bank because they were not advantageous, but we're going to continue to monitor rates throughout the year. We do have certain vacancies on the township's boards and committees. These will be advertised in our e-newsletter. Currently, there is a vacancy for an alternate member on the Park and Recreation Board and an alternate member on the Zoning Hearing Board, as well as a regular member on the Historical Commission. In terms of the redevelopment of the Parkway Center, we did receive comments from the Chester County Planning Commission at the end of December, as well as review comments on the update to the traffic impact study from PennDOT, as well as our traffic engineer for this project, Chris Williams with Bowman Consulting Group. Those have been, the comments from the Chester County Planning Commission have been forwarded accordingly. And the traffic consultant has requested a meeting with PennDOT, but we do not have a date for when that is going to occur yet. Additionally, the Delaware Valley Health Trust completed their annual visit of the township's facilities on December 18th. They will generate a report from that. That has not been provided yet. But I am pleased to report that the Delaware Valley Health Trust, let's see if I can find it, did award us with a certificate of recognition for exemplary achievement and leadership in minimizing workplace injuries and illnesses. So we have this on file.
That's good.
From the Health
Excellent.
Trust Board.
Well done to everybody.
In terms of our projects under the American Rescue Plan Act, Mark Bertolami has been coordinating the completion of the lining work in the Fresh Meadows development that was awarded to Snyder Environmental Services. We were notified today that that work is going to be done on February 3rd, weather permitting. So we learned that today, and we did provide notification to the property owners where the lining work will be done. And we did provide them with a copy of the lining plan as well. And then the Government Services Center Basin Project, all the contract documents were executed prior to the end of 2024, and a pre-construction meeting will be scheduled, and the work will most likely be done in the spring. On our zoning ordinance update, Gilmore & Associates did appear before the Planning Commission at their meeting on January 14th to provide an update to the status update on the project to the Planning Commission, and the next meeting of the Land Planning Committee is scheduled for February 3rd at 6 p.m. I do not have a full update on the Park Recreation and Open Space Plan. We're still working to coordinate the focus groups for that planning project, but I will note that 815 surveys have been submitted to the township for that project. And then lastly, all the easements for the project for the North Hill Storm Sewer Improvement Project have been approved by the board this evening. Chris Peterson has been authorized to complete final design, and as Brian indicated, we hope to go out to bid probably in the next 4 to 6 weeks. And those are all my announcements for this
There's
evening.
a lot of announcements, Chris. Is there any questions for the township manager? Ms. Weber?
When will the zoning hearing board meetings be updated on this?
They have been updated.
I haven't seen anything since October.
I just posted an agenda today because I just received the agenda
I'm
today.
sorry. Okay, today. Thank
But
you.
all the meetings for the year are on the calendar, and then they get updated as the agendas get posted.
Right, I haven't seen an update in a really long time, but if you did it today, I didn't check today. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, then we're on to agenda item number 15, which is Township Engineers Stormwater Announcements and Woodlands Update.
Good evening. So yes, Chris did announce earlier, I did. So now I and I are both licensed. She physically has her license. I should have mine in a week. Greystone update, I'm currently working through all of the approval documents still and looking to coordinate a meeting with the township solicitor, the township manager, and developer in early March to go over everything to make sure everything's in line for potentially proceeding with dedication of the park later this year. I have not been able to get out and verify the punch list because of the weather. MS4 audit, we're having a meeting on Thursday with manager, myself, Mike Maffa, Mark Rinalami, and Mike Calcula to go over the findings of our MS4 audit and some information that we need to provide. I need to provide back to DEP on our annual MS4 report this year.
So the report itself will be issued on what kind of time frame do you think?
For the MS4 report?
Yeah.
It was issued December 31st.
Okay, is it on the website or not yet?
The inspection report? No.
No.
That Chris has that, I don't know. But we have no violations, we just have some additional information we need to add to our report for 2024 based upon, example, one of the comments was we need to have written procedures for everything that the road crew does, whether it's how they deliver salt, how they load their salt in the trucks, how they clean the trucks. It has to be a written procedure, not just a policy, but written procedures. So that's one of the biggest things we need is standard operating procedures.
Okay, so with procedures come the training and the need to certify that you know the procedure, right?
They didn't say that, they said we need to have written procedures.
Well, I mean, if we're going to create procedures, we need to make sure everybody's read and understood them.
Everything they've done, everything they're doing, DEP was very, very happy with it, just nothing was written down.
Yeah, it's the old, if it's not documented, it didn't happen thing, so.
Additionally, Government Services Center Basin, the pre-construction meeting is scheduled for February the 3rd. The contractor and the county, that will be in D building, and after that, I will know more of a start date for that project.
So did the MS4 inspection review our progress on the projects that we've had in our plan and
Yes.
the other operational improvements that we've made over the last few years to be compliant with our MS4 permit?
Yes.
And what comments did they make?
I am awaiting a response to them because one of the major discussion points we had in the audit was the street sweeping program. We're very impressed with our program, but there is state guidance of what percentage of your waste allocation or waste reduction that we can actually account for. And they couldn't quote it to me at the thing. They said they get the information and I've asked for it and I haven't gotten it yet.
They think
There
we're
is
claiming
state
too
guidance.
much or we're not claiming enough?
They couldn't tell me. They didn't know, but they were very impressed with how we maintain our records and how we presented it. But one of the things they were very clear about is there's a certain percentage of our 390,000 pounds of reduction that we can claim as using as street sweeping. So they're going to get me that information back, and we may be able to claim more than we currently are. They haven't gotten me that yet. They were very happy to see the progress on our projects.
So our projects have morphed from the original permit that we were issued because of various reasons. That kind of a process where we have to change and look for new projects is something they expected to see, or are they holding our feet to the fire on what we originally had said we were going to do?
Our feet are held to the fire, as you say, in what's in our PRP plan. So in order to change what we're doing, we have to amend or modify our PRP plan again. And we have to have that done within the next 4 years.
Okay, we know that we have to amend that plan because of
There's projects that are here that we
Yes.
can't do, and there are
So-
projects that we are changing, and there's also projects that we've taken on. For example, our street sweeping and our inlet, our vacuum, we get credit for it, but it's not in our PRP plan. So we have to document that per the state requirements in our PRP moving forward.
Brian, do you think this year we will need to update the PRP projects and that we will undoubtedly have to now start looking at private properties to do improvements on compared to where we've been, which have been typically either public property or HOA properties?
Until I get the firm guidance from DEP on the street sweeping and the vacuum project, I don't feel comfortable saying yes or no to that. I do feel comfortable saying that we need to update our PRP plan within the next 18 months.
Okay. Other questions for Brian?
I have two questions. Something that came up, I think, in our meeting this month, but does the Greystone HOA need an easement to maintain their dam?
No, it's on their property.
What about access to it, though?
There's easements that need to be generated because of the way that property was developed. They have the right to access the property through the trails, but we have trails according to the as-built plan that was the draft that we reviewed, there are trails that are going to be township trails in the open space that are on their property where the property lines are drawn. So we need to ease that.
Declaration covers most of that.
Yeah, but so that's something that Crystal and I will be working through over the next month prior to March. If we need any easements or not.
So there's an action here around the township working with Kristen's office to review all the requirements for this development before we look at the park dedication, correct? So
yes.
Do we have a timeline for that, or is it just in the next month?
I think the timeline is, like Brian said, we're looking to have a meeting with the developer
in early
March. So the timeline is between now and like the end of February to have that outlook done. Because when they approached us about this, Brian wanted to go through all of the approval documents because there have been so many different approvals as well as modifications, just to make sure everything has been lined up accordingly. And I agree with how he's going through it.
Yeah. This open-ended question related to, we're not hearing from the state around approval of the issue that one of the dams has. I mean, that could hang out there well after we've resolved all these other issues. What would you be telling the board around how to manage that situation? If we get into the middle of the year, everything's been sorted out in terms of the punch list, all these other items, and yet this dam fix has not been approved by the state.
That is something that I can report back to you once I have more discussion with Kristen, with their counsel, and also the developer.
Okay.
I do believe that there is money in the escrow for the dams, the two that they're repairing outside of that. They did post escrow for those dams.
And the money in the escrow will be reviewed to ensure that it is consistent with the proposed remediation that they've told the state they're going to do.
We'll work through the process with them. If we need to, I'll bring Schnabel back into the project as well to look at it and make sure it's done.
Okay, we used Schnabel to do something. What was it again?
Schnabel did the original review of the plans back when they were proposed. The developer, from my understanding and talking to Rick about it, is the developer didn't want to address Schnabel's comments on 2 or 3 dams. That's why they're private.
Okay.
Schnabel then came and did a punch list for us. That punch list is provided to the developer to address. And they have not come back to say they've addressed any of the comments in the punch list for the 2 dams.
Okay.
So they have that. They've had the punch list since last year.
All right, thank you for the update. Any questions for Brian from the board or anyone in attendance? Steve?
Yeah, I just was curious on a couple of things. Rosedale and New Streets, intersection was being re-engineered, and I'm just curious if
that intersection is currently held up by Westchester University's comments.
I thought it was held up by the borough.
From my understanding and talking to Carroll Engineering, the university's IT department made a lot of comments about what they want to see in that intersection. But that's what I heard.
I don't think the borough was pushing it forward either. I know that I kept bringing it up as an issue because it's tied to the development of I can't remember the building they built, but it's a requirement of that approval, and nobody was pushing it forward. And I kept bringing it up to Kevin Gore, who was the director of building and planning, and now he moved away. So if yeah,
I had a
keep my
con-
mouth shut, but it should stay on somebody's radar.
I had a conversation with the traffic engineer doing that project in December, and he's working through the comments from Westchester University on IT department on that intersection.
I did have a conversation with the university regarding that because that came up at the traffic safety committee meeting earlier this month. And it's going to have to be a phased project over 2 summers, and they should have the finalized drawings from Carroll Engineering by the end of the month. So that's
phase 1 this summer then? Is that the expectation?
well, both of these phases that I received from Dave McNamara at the university said summer 2026. I'm assuming one is 2025 and one is 2026.
Apparently, the first phase, they have to move utilities.
They do have to do utility relocations to prepare for the actual intersection work, including electricity, IT, and the material lead times. They can't complete all the work in one summer without going into the fall semester. And I would imagine that a project of this scope, they probably wouldn't want under construction during the school year, so they're probably going to try to complete it over 2 summers. But they hope, the email I received on January 9th said that they're hoping to have the final drawings from Carroll Engineering this month.
Speaking of the university, does anybody have an update on the status of their master planning exercise?
So they had indicated to Brian that they had sent us a draft of like the first half of the plan before Christmas. I went back and checked my emails and did not receive anything. So I haven't seen anything. So I do not know the status.
My understanding, it will be submitted first quarter.
Okay.
The other question I have, Brian, is how are we progressing with sidewalk on Rosedale Avenue? I've answered design questions from Carroll Engineering on the plans about what and they're working on them.
That's the summer project this year, we believe, right?
Rosedale project?
Yeah, the sidewalk.
If we can bid it for the summer, yes.
Is there still an issue with getting permission from the cemetery there, or the Hickmans?
We're going to need to get easements from them.
And additional right of way, correct?
Yeah.
When can we start that
We
process?
should be starting that now.
Well, I'll need the plans to show how much additional right of way we're going to need from them.
Yeah, that's a,
Oh, so we need the plans first, and then we get the easement.
Correct.
Okay.
That's still, that sidewalk doesn't end at the intersection of New Street with, it's further back, right? So we're not going to have conflict this summer with any other project work.
it ends at the driveway,
Yes, that's right, yeah.
Because it was planned to go to the existing network and the
Yeah, and
the
then cross over the road on
intersection.
that side, yeah.
And there's a mid-block crossing in that area.
Any idea when we're going to get the plans from Carroll? We have a schedule for that?
I can report back on that, but no.
Yeah, let's see if we get that moving along.
Any other questions for Brian?
I got a quick one.
Sal?
The PRP, which obviously was developed because of state mandates, whatever, and you're obviously, kind of having issues on finding enough land to do it on. Is there ever a point where you can tell the state, like, we're done, we can't go any further, we're as clean as we can possibly be?
We're under not only a PRP, which is a pollution reduction plan, but
Right.
also under a TMDL, which is a total maximum
Right.
daily. We have both,
Mhm.
which is not normal in Chester County. Westchester County doesn't, we have one. So we have to reduce it, and that's a mandate from EPA.
What happens when you get to zero?
Oh, we aren't actually short of projects. What we've focused on to date is ones that were more easily addressed and in our control a little bit better, like government services center, public owned property. Once we start talking to private owned property to provide these improvements, it gets to be a much more
I mean, does anyone ever push back to say, well, we've hit a certain practical limit where, it's the point of diminishing returns?
I don't believe so.
Don't know if anybody's gotten to that yet.
But mostly because people haven't even done their projects.
Yeah, it just seems like you're always struggling to get there and finding ways. Okay, just get more curious.
Any other questions for Brian? Okay, thank you, Brian. Shelby, zoning officer's announcements, agenda item 16.
I have no further updates to provide, but I'm willing to answer any questions that the board may have.
Okay. Any questions for the board for Shelby? The zoning hearing board meeting has just a one agenda item.
Correct. I do intend to follow up with the applicant for 851 South High. which is known as the Exxon development. They did go before the Planning Commission last week, and we're going to revisit, and I have not heard back from them. They potentially discussed amending their application and moving forward in a different path, but I intend to follow up with their attorney tomorrow.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Shelby? Thank you. We will move on to agenda item number 17, which is approval of the meeting minutes of December the 19th, 2024. Does any of the board have any corrections for the meeting minutes? I have one question, Chris, if you can find it. On page 2, under the discussion of the budget, fourth paragraph that starts Mr. Walsh. The last sentence says, Ms. Riffey noted that she anticipates additional rate increases in the near future. I thought she was expecting rate decreases on the interest rate.
That is correct. And that was a typo on my part.
Yeah. And that was it for, there's one other comment on page 11. Under the zoning officer's announcements, Ms. Smith noted that they bought the apartment complex and have to remain 100 feet from that property line since it is a residential use. I'm not quite sure that has been captured correctly.
I'll go back and double check that.
I mean, we heard today it's the adjacent property that they own. It's nothing. It's just that they want to set back from the residential.
That might have been what I was confusing it with, that they bought the adjacent property.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, I'll make those two corrections.
Thank you. Is there any other comments or changes from the board?
Just a minor typo on page 3, second paragraph. Change is to if, so it will state that the township must re-advertise the budget if categories are changed by certain. So.
Okay, thanks. Any other comments? Okay, I'll make a motion to approve the meeting minutes of December the 19th with the noted corrections we've just discussed. Is there a second?
No, second.
Thank you, John. Is there any public comment or questions on the minutes? Okay, I'll take a vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Is there any opposition? Hearing none, the motion passes 5-0. Agenda item 18 is approval of the Treasurer's report and the bills to be paid. Treasurer's report dated 12/31. I'll make a motion to approve the Treasurer's report and the bills to be paid. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Nate.
I just have 2 questions, Chris. False alarm fees for 2024 for Goshen Fire Company and Westchester Volunteer, what's that?
Those are the distribution of fines to the responding agencies. So when there's fines, they get distributed to the fire companies who respond. So we collect the fines, and then Andrea totals up kind of where they go,
I got you.
and then we supply the money to them.
Okay, I thought it was direct, I didn't know what it was.
But that's the one time a year. We just do it at the end of the year.
One time a year.
Yes, $3,600.
The only other question I had was on code inspections. We see them on the prepaid fund, and we also see them in the monthly invoices. What's the difference between the 2 payments they get? Why is one in prepaid and the other on the invoice list?
It might have been something that we were withholding from them for whatever reason, but I can look into that.
They're both classified as rental inspections, so.
Unless there was one that just missed kind of going through. I'll check on that.
Yeah, just a one. Any other questions on the report or the bills list from either the board or anyone in attendance? Okay, we'll take a vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Is there any opposition? Hearing none, the motion passes 5-0. I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting at 8:35. Is there a second? Second. Thank you. All in favor of adjournment say aye. Aye. Thank you, everybody. It's a cold evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.